For all those who appreciate the work that we're doing here on Standing for Truth, please hit that subscribe button because we are just getting started.
Hey, welcome everybody to the King Crocoduck, Ken Hovind Part 3. I'm Steve McRae, host of the Great Debate Community, and I know all of you have been very much excited to looking forward to this. We're going to jump right into it. We're going to give each debater a few minutes to have an opening statement in regards to tonight's topic, which is going to be on radiation and cosmology. This is going to be more of a free-form back and forth debate, and hopefully we'll get some Q&A in at the end from the live feed. King Crocoduck, go ahead and go first with your opening statement. Then we'll go ahead and have Kent give his.
All right, thank you, Steve. I want to make sure that everybody can see my screen, so let me check really quickly. How are we doing? Everybody can see, yeah?
It's good on this end.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to begin with a little bit of a presentation. I just want to set the scene, make sure that everybody's on the same page about what we are and what we're not talking about today. So this way we end up not wasting any time. So when it comes to the Big Bang Theory, this is what the theory claims. It says that 13.8 billion years ago, the universe expanded from a very hot and dense state into its current cool and sparse one. There's a whole host of predictions associated with this, but this is sort of the general gist of the theory. The theory does not claim, it does not address the origin of space, time, and energy. I realize that there are some popular science, enthusiast websites. There are some kids' books that say that this is the case. In reality, this is not the case. The Big Bang Theory tells us that it's addressing how the universe transitioned from its initial hot and dense state into the current cool and sparse state over the course of 13.8 billion years. So this should not come up, and it's not under any obligation to describe this. I have here a graphic of major events since the Big Bang, and you can even see down here the 10 to the minus 43 seconds. There's no point here that says, universe came into existence. That's not the point of the theory. In order to be able to probe, this kind of region right here at 10 to the minus 43 seconds since the initial expansion as calculated, you need things like quantum gravity, and we don't have a theory describing that, But, it's not sufficient grounds to dismiss gravity or quantum mechanics because of some ambiguities in either of these theories. The entire scientific enterprise is about covering the gaps, about closing these gaps in our knowledge in order to better understand how the universe functions. It's a good thing, too, that these gaps exist. Otherwise, I'd be out of a job. Now, the second thing that the Big Bang Theory does not address is whether the universe has a creator or not. Completely irrelevant to the topic under discussion. I have here two people. I'm probably going to butcher his name, Georges Lemaitre. He was a Catholic priest and a physicist. He was the one who came up with the Big Bang Theory. And I have here Fred Hoyle. He was an atheist and a physicist, and he rejected the Big Bang Theory his entire professional career. From 1929, when the theory started to gain traction, when Hubble started to discover the relationship between redshift and distances of receding galaxies, Fred Hoyle rejected that immediately, and he continued rejecting it until his death in 2001. And he was an atheist, and in fact, he invented the term Big Bang as a pejorative. It was intended to demean the theory. He did it in a BBC interview, and he had this to say. He said, "The reason why scientists like the Big Bang is because they are overshadowed by the book of Genesis. It is deep within the psyche of most scientists to believe in the first page of Genesis." So anyway, the upshot of all this is not some kind of atheistic satanic conspiracy to try to discredit any kind of religion. We subscribe to the Big Bang Theory because it's the best model that we have describing how the universe came to be in its current state. Finally, it does not address why dogs produce dogs. I hope we don't waste our time on this nonsense anymore. This is a physics debate, not a biology debate. So, let's stay on topic here. Finally, just a few words about scientific theories. The strength of a scientific theory depends on its predictive power, on whether it accurately makes novel, testable predictions about future data. And a bit of a hint here, dogs produce dogs is not a novel prediction. Neither is it's going to get wet on the ground when it rains. These are not novel predictions. These are things that people have observed since the beginning of time. So And these are a couple of other criteria, just general rules of thumb for what theories should look like. They have to be potentially falsifiable. There's some criteria which, if met, would warrant the theory's abandonment. And they have to have explanatory efficiency, or the number of unjustified assumptions minimized. It's basically Occam's razor. So anyway, I'm here in this debate to make two principal claims using primarily what we know about radiation, and in particular, what we know from redshift, and especially the cosmic microwave background radiation. My two principal claims are that the Big Bang Theory meets all of these criteria, and that Hovind's model of the universe's development does not meet any of them. So I'm going to turn the mic now to Mr. Hovind, and I'll let him make his opening statement.
I hit this wrong button. Did I get it right there? Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine.
Yeah, we hear you.
Well, good. Yeah, these complex systems ought to happen automatically. I'm curious about numerous things, I guess. You call yourself King Crocoduck. Who made you a king, and what's Crocoduck mean? I'd like to know. Maybe you can address that someday. Why did you choose that name, and why do you do this? If we are indeed nothing but animated meat, a result of a Big Bang, what is your purpose in? I'm still baffled on what are you trying to accomplish here, but you can maybe address that sometime. I mean, so if you're right, nothing matters. Nothing matters. So anyway, okay. I take the position the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. The Earth the whole universe is about 6,000 years old. It was created by God, and it is expanding, maybe, based on a redshift, which may or may not show the universe is expanding. There's articles you can search the internet, does the redshift prove the universe is expanding? And there's quite a controversy still among a variety of people on whether it's expanding or not. I happen to believe it is. But I did a YouTube a couple nights ago that you may want to watch on this topic about the red shift. What does that show? If we observe different people groups running a certain direction, and we can measure the speed that they're traveling and the direction they're traveling, and the distance they are from a central point, that still would not prove they didn't start running 10 seconds ago, or that they've always run at the same speed, or that they were all crashed into one little tiny dot. You said, I believe I got your quote right here, that the Big Bang Theory, you believe the Big Bang because it's the best model we have. I think if I asked you to explain how computers came to be, but you cannot use man as your example, as your answer. You have to come up with a scientific explanation excluding man or intelligent designer, and you come up with all kinds of explanations of how computers came to be or how automobiles came to be or any complex thing. A single cell. If you've already excluded the only logical answer by your rules, then of course you're going to be wondering the rest of your life, do you have the right one? This Big Bang Theory is only the latest in a long story of people trying to reject the creator. They don't want there to be a God. So I think they are tied together. It's interesting you would bring up the ideas and then tell people that we can't talk about that. Dogs produce dogs, etc. But you brought it up, so I think it certainly is part of the debate. If your point is that the Big Bang or the red shift is somehow evidence that the universe is billions of years old, I think I would have to disagree completely. There's overwhelming evidence that the Earth is only a few thousand years old, and we cover all this in my seminar. And the red shift, nobody's quite sure what's causing that. There's numerous the hydrogen lines that appear toward the red spectrum. It is assumed to be some kind of great distance. And the greater the distance, well, here's a textbook from Berkeley University I just got yesterday. They're saying if the star is nearby, it'll have hydrogen lines that are shifted toward the blue. And if they're, is that going to show? Look at that. Application window, star distance, redshift, share it. Oh, okay. So the theory is that the red shift is caused by what's called the Doppler effect. Whether it affects light or not is probably, it does. If a train is coming toward you, we know with sound it's easy to explain. If a train is coming toward you, the sound waves are compressed and it raises the pitch. If the train is leaving you, it's refracted or stretched out, and it lowers the pitch. So you hear the train come when it goes past you. This is a well-known phenomenon, and it's assumed that light is doing the same thing. And all the textbooks have examples of that, the Doppler effect of light. If the star is moving toward you, it gives a blue shift. If it's moving away from you, it gives a red shift. This is typical textbook 101. The correlation was first observed by Edwin Hubble, come to be known as Hubble's law. Vestio Slipher was the first to discover galactic redshifts in about 1912. So for about 100 years, this has been observed. And I point out that if we see stars giving a red shift, and it would appear that they are all leaving us or moving away, I think that's probably reasonable. This textbook from 20 years ago said it was 18 billion years old, and now they're saying 13.8, I believe is the number you used. It'll change next week to something else. And this textbook teaches that the Big Bang happens every 80 to 100 billion years. There's a big bang, and then a big squish, and then a big bang, and a big squish. It all comes back together again. The oscillating yo-yo universe. Discover Magazine says everything came from nothing. This is all part of my seminar slides, which you can watch on video number 1. Even Alan Guth in Scientific American. The observable universe could have evolved from an infinitesimal region. Now, King Crocoduck, Your Highness, all of the heat that is currently spread out throughout the universe, all of the temperature, the total temperature of the sun, the total temperature of all these planets had to all be in this initial dot. Do you have any idea how hot that would have to be, since you're not going to gain heat from anywhere? Where did this heat come from? There's an enormous amount of heat in the universe. Just add up all the stars and you'll see. Anyway, I talk about so I gave my illustration the other night about if we see a crowd A moving away from Jones Bakery at 15 miles an hour toward the 3 o'clock position, and they're 27 miles away. We see crowd B moving away from Jones Bakery at 18 miles an hour toward the 10 o'clock position. And we go through and look at all these different crowds, look at which direction they're traveling, how fast they're going, and how far they are from Jones Bakery. I think we could easily put the crowds together on a chart and say, okay, these guys are only moving 3 miles an hour. This lady's highly motivated. She's going 25 miles an hour. So if we put all this data together, and I think we can do that with the stars, and say, okay, the stars appear to be moving away from us. What's the conclusion? Well, we would conclude that there was an explosion at a central point between Dallas and Fort Worth, and that our high-speed computer could analyze all this and say the speed of the various crowds indicates one factor we can throw in, and the distance from the bakery and the direction of travel. We only observed each group run for about 10 seconds, enough to run a few feet, which is the equivalent of watching the stars give a red shift for 100 years. But we know they ran the same speed and the same direction from the very start. So it's completely our scientific and logical conclusion that an explosion took place in Oven 3 at Jones Bakery 2.43663 billion years ago. Prior to that, all the people we saw running in the various crowds were compressed into a tiny speck of matter, much smaller than a period on a page. It was in a jelly donut in Oven number 3. This is what it looked like 3 nanoseconds before the Big Bang. The entire mass of humanity was in this speck just under the sugar right here. And you can see the redshift right there as this oozing out of the donut. So preliminary research indicates the speck contained the mass of humanity and was accidentally disturbed by an ant, causing it to explode. So obviously Big Bangs leave little hard evidence, so continued research will be slow and costly, and we requested $400 billion to continue this study. This, King Crocoduck and the rest of you evolutionists, is how stupid the evolution and Big Bang theory is. To the average thinking person, this is dumb to see stars giving a red shift and then conclude that that is somehow proof they all started from a single dot smaller than a period on a page. There are many, many scientists who disagree that red shifts prove the distance or the speed. And there's plenty of articles here. Sky and Telescope magazine, clear back in '94, they said the redshift is not reliable. From Sky and Telescope magazine, a catalog of quasars article. In fact, there's little correlation of brightness to redshift at all. Either quasars come in an extremely wide range of luminosities, as most people believe, or their redshifts do not indicate distance. The only conclusion can be drawn is that at least for some quasars are relatively nearby, and a large fraction of their redshift is due to something other than expansion of the universe. The book, the Evolution Handbook, is nearly 1,000 pages with all kinds of documentation about the silliness of believing that this redshift proves anything. So we could talk for hours and hours on this if you'd like. I'll end up producing a whole hour-long DVD on the topic with all the quotes from science magazines, research journals, which you like, that show that there could be distant quasars within a nearby galaxy because of the University of California, San Diego. So I think that your premise is that because we see a redshift in stars, therefore that means they're moving away. That's assumption number one. Assumption number two, they've always been moving the same speed. Assumption number three, we can measure their distance to these stars. I don't think that's possible at all, and neither do many folks who study this. You certainly can't do it with parallax trigonometry beyond about 100 light years. So, and we could talk about that if you'd like. So I have to completely disagree. I don't think the Big Bang is the best model. I think it's dumb. And if you want to believe that, that's fine. But that's, I think, you need to realize, and you probably do realize, that your position is clearly calling Jesus Christ a liar, which again, you're welcome to do. But Jesus believed that the creation was the beginning. He's the one who did it and told us that he did it in 6 literal days. And I don't see any other way it'll work biologically with all the symbiotic relationships, but that's for another debate. Okay, let's see. So you're claiming the redshift and cosmic background radiation is proof that the universe is 13.8 billion years old. I completely disagree. You've chosen to interpret the evidence that way, but that is not proof of anything. Go ahead.
All right. Well, before I begin my somewhat lengthy reply, I just want to let everybody know you can gish, but you can't gallop. I'm going to start with your 94 article, your 1994 article. I happen to be familiar with it, and I happen to be familiar with the controversy surrounding it. Now, this actually relates to quasars and their intrinsic brightness. And it was unclear for a certain amount of time as to what caused this intrinsic brightness. You mentioned that the distances to distant objects cannot be measured using parallax, Kent. I'm very concerned because this will now be the 3rd time that I tell you this, maybe even the 4th time. I said, and possibly even the 5th, there are, I think, in every single conversation or exchange we've had, I've mentioned that we can measure the distance to distant objects using standard candles. You've never contested this. You've never argued anything to the contrary, but you still keep bringing this up. We don't need to use parallax. We can use type 1a supernovae in order to see the distances to objects millions, even billions of light years away. And I demonstrated how to do this in my 2nd video reply to you, which, you know, one of these days we get around to watching, and hopefully, you know, it'll go in 1 year and it's not going to go out the other. But the 1994 article, it was saying that the absolute brightness was not corresponding to the redshift, and that there was something wrong with the standard candle. So we can either say that there's something wrong with the standard candle or there's something wrong with the redshift. And this particular article that you're citing opted to go with redshift. These people who you cited, they were Fred Hoyle's associates, so they were against the Big Bang. I mentioned Hoyle was the atheist who was against the Big Bang his entire career. Now, what they got wrong was they did not take into account the fact that you cannot use the brightness in these quasars as standard candles. You can't use it in this particular instance. This only applies to very specific situations, things like Cepheid variables, things like type 1a supernovae. That does not apply to quasars. When we're talking about the absolute brightness due to quasars, we're talking about we're talking about a completely different phenomena to what's generally being used to measure distances in other instances. And there are a whole host of peer-reviewed papers that are demonstrating this. The paper you cited is something like 20 years out of date, along with everything else you're citing, and I'll get to those momentarily. The takeaway is that you have accretion disks at quasars, and that these are creating extremely high energy jets. And at the time that the article was published, this was not entirely clear, but it has since become clear. So you really need to update your research. While we're on the topic of updating your research, you said that there are changes in the Big Bang Theory's age, and you cited something from 20 years ago saying it was something like 20 billion years old. We discussed this in the first debate, though, Kent, and you didn't contest it then either. I told you that there are error bars, that these are plus or minuses, and that as our instrumentation improves over time, as our ability to measure the necessary variables improves, our capacity to determine the age gets better and better, the error bars become smaller and smaller. So if you look at the error bars for 20 years ago, you're almost certainly going to see that they encompassed the age that we're using right now, and that the age we're using right now has even smaller error bars. So, you know, it's like every time we talk, every time we correspond, it goes in 1 year, out the other. I'm beginning to wonder if this is a waste of time. Now, you also mentioned the Big Bang and the Big Squish. Again, this is 20, 30 years out of date. Nobody subscribes to this model anymore because now that we've made more accurate measurements with WMAP, I'll get to that shortly, we know that the universe's expansion is actually accelerating. The universe is not going to it's not going to crush into itself. The evidence is not pointing in that direction. Initially, people thought that it would as a result of gravity, but we know now that the universe is accelerating in its expansion. So this is not actually what's going to end up happening. Let's see what else. Right, I just want to address really quickly. You mentioned how computers came to be versus how the universe came to be. This is a false equivalence. As I said, the Big Bang Theory does not describe how the universe came to be. This is literally the first thing that I mentioned in this debate, and again, in one ear, out the other. So, you know, if we really want a good comparison, it's how computers function over time versus how the universe works and how it has functioned over time. So I'm going to leave it there. When it comes to redshifts, there is no controversy as to what redshifts indicate. They absolutely do indicate that things are receding. So, you know, you have to do your research more carefully. If you can find me an expert today who disagrees with that assessment, then by all means pull them up. But as far as anybody can tell, it's simply not the case. All right, so I think that about covers all the important things. My name, King Crocoduck. I'm not going to spend too much time, but just search Kirk Cameron Crocoduck on Google, and it should be reasonably clear. Right, so I'm going to show you a little thing. Let me share my screen right now. Right. Okay, so the cosmic microwave background radiation. You said a few things just now, Kent. You said that the cosmic microwave background radiation and the redshift of the galaxies, these are things that we're interpreting, that we're looking at the evidence, and we're interpreting it in order to make it conform with the Big Bang model. But this is projection. This is what creationists do. As I mentioned in the first debate, this is what lawyers get paid to do. It's not what scientists do. So this is the part that I want you to pay the closest attention to, because this is the most important thing. With your jelly donut thing, let me think. With your jelly donut thing, you raise an interesting question, and it's a question that Gamow was thinking about in the 1930s. Question is, how do we know that the universe expanded from a hot, dense state billions of years ago? What if it only started expanding 100 years ago, before Hubble actually saw these things? And the answer is the cosmic microwave background radiation. As I said, we examine a theory's power in terms of its predictive capabilities, in terms of its ability to predict novel phenomena. And the cosmic microwave background radiation is by far the best example of this. So here are these three guys. We have Gamow, Alpher, and Herman, three physicists in the 1940s. And Gamow's realization was that the early universe must have been hot. As you indicated, Mr. Hovind, the universe was incredibly hot. So hot that it was basically all just a huge ionized plasma. Everything was extremely dense, high collision rates and high friction made the temperature super high. Everything was just plasma and radiation. But as the universe expands under the Big Bang model, Gamow realized, okay, if the Big Bang theory is correct, then this plasma must have cooled over time. And if it did cool over time, it must have cooled sufficiently to allow electrons to form stable bonds with protons. If the energy is too high, then these bonds are not able to form. You're not able to have neutral hydrogen atoms. Here I have a little diagram of emission and absorption. My videos, Quantum Theory Made Easy, Parts 1 and 2, describe this process in a little bit more detail. But the upshot is that you essentially have a giant ball of plasma the size of the universe, and that it's trapping all of the light, and the light is bouncing from atom to atom. It's getting emitted and absorbed extremely quickly. It's just being bounced around. It's super dense, and it's not able to travel freely. But as the universe is expanding and as the universe is cooling, you are able to have the formation of stable hydrogen nuclei, and this process is called recombination. This part of the Big Bang theory is called recombination. So if you turn back to the little diagram I showed earlier, you'll see at 380,000 years after the Big Bang, they calculate this is approximately the time under the model based on the rate of expansion that you should be seeing this recombination. Now, once the once the universe becomes sufficiently cool, it becomes increasingly difficult for the photons to excite these ionized particles. So they cease to be absorbed and emitted, and eventually they end up scattering off in every direction. So here we have, at low enough temperatures, the photons become insufficiently energetic to excite the atoms, and instead they scatter away. This is called decoupling. You can see here the photon on the left, the little squiggly thing, is hitting the electron, and a less energetic version of it is bouncing away while the electron is bouncing away. So once the universe becomes sufficiently cool, Gamow realizes under this model there should be light streaming in every direction, carrying this information of this super hot plasma. And it should be going everywhere in every direction in the universe. And it should exhibit what's called isotropy. It should... there are a number of predictions associated with this, and I'll get to those in turn. But anyway, the point is, if it is the case that the universe did, if we are allowed to extrapolate, if we are to say that these redshifts can be extrapolated all the way back to the super hot and dense plasma state, then we have to posit that there is some trace of this super hot plasma, and that plasma is what is called the cosmic background radiation. So what kind of predictions were associated with it? Well, Gamow showed that these scattered photons should still be reaching us. They should be highly redshifted, and they should match a black body spectrum. The plasma state of the universe was a perfect absorber. A black body is basically the definition of a black body. It's a perfect absorber. It does not reflect light. And it has a very specific curve associated with it. I have all these curves here, so I just want to draw your attention really quickly. This bottom curve we have, it conforms to a certain function, but the y-axis is the intensity and the x-axis is the wavelength. The intensity is the intensity of that particular wavelength. The electromagnetic spectrum has all these wavelengths, X-ray, microwave, visible, and so on. So at the peak of this one, we have that the wave, this one is 3000 Kelvin. Its peak is at this wavelength. This other black body curve right here, it's 4000 Kelvin. Its peak is at this wavelength. We have another black body curve right here. Its peak is right here. We have this black body curve, 6000 Kelvin. That's approximately the temperature of the sun, and its peak wavelength is right here. What these peak wavelengths basically mean is that this is this is where this is the most of the wavelengths. Well, that's not entirely correct. This is it's the peak of if you look at the distribution. This is the highest point of the distribution. If you're sorting it according to which wavelengths are, how many of this kind of wavelength, how many of this kind of wavelength, how many of this kind of wavelength, the peak says this kind of wavelength has the most being emitted from the source at this temperature. There's this equation right here associated with that. Very easy algebraic equation. Should be very basic, even a creationist can understand. The temperature is 2.9 times 10 to the negative 3 divided by the peak wavelength at that temperature. So keep this equation in mind, it's going to be important. Now, Alpher and Herman, they were the research associates of Gamow. They predicted the temperature of the background radiation based on the expansion rate of the universe. They said that if this background radiation does exist, it has to have a certain temperature. Now, pay attention to the date here. This was April of 1950. And it says here, from equation 91c, one can then calculate rho sub r double prime, the present density of radiation, the residual radiation density from the expansion alone, as rho sub r double prime equals this thing. The value of rho sub r double prime corresponds to a temperature now of about 5 degrees Kelvin. So what they're basically saying is that the cosmic microwave background radiation should be approximately 5 Kelvin. Then in 1963, Penzias and Wilson discovered the cosmic microwave background radiation. And in 1989, the COBE satellite, the Cosmic Background Explorer, was launched, made precise measurements of the spectrum. And I want you to pay close attention here. We have this green line showing what a black body spectrum would look like, and the red error bars here showing the COBE data. It is a perfect fit. What you're looking at is the best measurement ever taken of a black body spectrum. So this prediction was knocked out of the park. They predicted the existence of the cosmic microwave background radiation. They predicted what shape it should have. And if you look at where the peak is, this is in terms of frequency instead of wavelength. But if you convert to wavelength and then plug into this equation, you can get the temperature. The temperature, it turned out, was approximately 2.74 Kelvin at the peak. They predicted 5 Kelvin, which is pretty damn good given the instruments that they had available to them. Under any event, this falls well within the error bars. And as you can see from the images that we got ever since, here's COBE from 1992, WMAP, the Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe from 2003, and the ESA Planck satellite from 2013. You can see that they all, well, it's a little bit more difficult with COBE, but you can see from these two at least that there is certainly isotropy. And the anisotropies are about 1 part in 100,000. You need that in order to have large-scale structure. So to summarize, the Big Bang Theory accurately predicted the existence of the cosmic microwave background radiation, the shape of its spectrum, its temperature, its peak wavelength, its general isotropy. All of these were predicted decades in advance. My question to you, Mr. Hovind, and to all creationists is why? This is not something that was interpreted ad hoc. This is not like, oh, look, it's dogs produce dogs, therefore my thing is correct. No. This was predicted beforehand, and it was predicted with stupendous accuracy. And this thing was predicted directly as a consequence of the universe expanding from a hot, dense state. All of the calculations associated with this took into consideration the model saying that the universe was once this plasma, that there was once this physics going on. So I will leave it to you, Mr. Hovind, to try to address this. If you don't have time to address everything that I addressed in turn, that's fine. But address this at least. So I will leave it to you now.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. To share screen, what do I do? Live, share screen. Okay. Praise God for Steve here. Okay. Somebody's breathing into their microphone pretty heavy. Way before any of these guys you mentioned, the book of Isaiah, written about 600 years before Christ, I think that's way before all those guys you mentioned, said that God stretched out the heavens. Isaiah 42, Isaiah 45, he stretched out the heavens. There are 17 references in the Bible where it says God stretched out the heavens. So if indeed the moving of the stars or the stretching of the heavens could be predicted and to cause some of the effects that you mentioned, I think it was predicted 2,600 years ago, right in God's word. So I don't think that it's any evidence at all for a Big Bang. It could just as much be evidence that God's word is exactly correct. You said we cannot use brightness for quasars because they have accretion disks that are high energy disks. I'm still baffled, I guess, and I'd like you to address the question. Was all of the temperature that is currently distributed throughout the universe, and I'm confused because nearly all the Big Bang models talk about in one very tiny dot, and yet you say it was the size of the universe. You said, I think I got your quote here, the plasma was the size of our universe. I have to go back and listen to the tape, but so which was it? Was it all in one dot, or was it the size of the current universe? And what is the size of the current universe? I know we have a visible spot, but is that the end of it? So to say that you can't use brightness with quasars, but you can, how then do you know you can use it with other things? And you said the expansion is accelerating. You said that in several times we've talked. Where is this energy coming from? All known physics tells us to make anything move requires energy. Where is the energy coming from to move anything, let alone to, if the universe is accelerating in its expansion? I guess I'm still baffled. I think most folks are. Where is this energy coming from? Who's adding this energy, or is it just intrinsic in the matter, the stars itself? I don't know about Gish galloping. I'd sure like to do this one topic at a time. That's something you've accused several times. I think you're the one that just did it. You just went over 15 topics, and there's no way I can possibly answer all of them. So you're the one that does the Gish galloping. You have given absolutely no logical explanation for how you could have all this temperature and all this mass in such a tiny dot. If it was plasma, this plasma was compressed into a dot smaller than a period on a page? Wouldn't that be like solid matter? I showed in my textbook, all the textbooks teach it was the Big Bang came from a dot smaller than a period on a page. That is indeed what I've seen, and I collect the textbooks. And so anyway, I think that you're observing the red shift and you're observing a cosmic background radiation. Very interesting observations. That does not prove a Big Bang. Even if the Big Bang model did predict those things, it could still be explained by God's word with the expansion of the heavens. If God created it all in 6 days and he's the one who spread it out, you would get exactly the same effect. You would still get the cosmic background radiation and still get the red shift. So I don't think you've proven the Big Bang or disproven the Bible in any way, shape, or form. Again, you galloped over and give me 20 topics. I can't get them all. So we'll do this one at a time. Let's see. And you may have been a slip of the tongue there, but you said, as the universe cooled, light streamed in all directions, carrying the information. That's another thing I'd love for you to explain. Obviously, there appears to be information in our DNA code and everything. Information, not just matter. The zeros and ones in a computer code is not just zeros and ones. It carries information. Morse code is even writing on a piece of paper. It's not just ink on paper. It carries information. So was the information that is currently spread out, let's just take in Lenox, Alabama, with the 35 people that live here. Each of them probably has books in their house and libraries. The whole world, all this information was in this dot. All of this temperature was in this dot, and all of this matter was in this dot. Is that what I'm hearing you say that you believe? Go ahead.
Hello? Okay. Okay, so it sounds like there's an argument from incredulity at play here. How could all of this mass and heat be concentrated in a single dot? I don't see what the physical problem is. You can, in principle, compress an arbitrary amount of energy into an arbitrarily small amount of space. Of course, you're going to end up with a black hole as a result, but that's kind of how it goes. Now, with regard to was all of the Big Bang in one dot, and versus the was this plasma state the size of the entire universe? Well, the entire observable universe was at one point inside of this one dot, but that doesn't mean that the entire universe, the universe outside of our observable universe, it does exist. There are things that are leaving our cosmic horizon. That was greater than the size of a dot. How exactly big the universe is, I don't know. It could be infinite, it could be finite. It's not clear at this time. Let's see. But in principle, I don't see. If you could show me what principle in physics says that there's a limit to density, then by all means cite it. I'll be happy to take it into consideration. Now, with regard to gish galloping, Kent, you were the one who brought up all those topics. All I did was address them. Don't get mad at me. If you don't want me to address all of your topics and then bring up my own, don't bring up a zillion topics. Pick one and stick with it. Now, with regard to light carrying information, this is pretty straightforward. In order to see something, light is reflecting off of it and enters our cornea. There's a chemical and physical interaction. This is all that I meant by it. I'm not talking about zeros and one. I'm not talking about a computer programmer. Now, with regard to, let's see, what else were you saying? Okay, so the Bible able to account for cosmic microwave background radiation. Well, this is what I mean by ad hoc rationalization. And I said at the beginning of the first debate, at this point, you are admitting that you are a lawyer and not a scientist. You are looking at the evidence that we have gathered, the evidence that we have accurately predicted, and you are now writing our coattails in order to prop up this frankly infantile model. Sorry, we made the predictions, your model did not. Where does the Bible talk about the cosmic microwave background radiation? Where does it talk about the black body curve? Where does it talk about the temperature? You can't just look at these cryptic verses of God stretched out the heavens. What about the next part where it says that he puts it over the universe like a tent? What is the analog to that in physics? And why is it that nobody was pointing to the Bible and its supposedly accurate prediction prior to the Big Bang. Why weren't Christians talking about the Big Bang theory for however long they've been around? As I said, this is all ad hoc rationalization, and every religious group, every guru, every New Age person does it. It's like, look at what the Bhagavad Gita says. It talks about it made this prediction so and so, and look at how the Quran teaches us to wash our hands, and all of this other stuff. And people are, you could pull up a whole list. It's very easy to find. Just go to any apologetics website for literally any religion, and you're going to see them make the same claims. Everybody tries to make science into their own. Everybody tries to pimp their personal ideologies using the hard-earned predictions of science, using the hard-earned successes of science. But anyway, when it comes to one's metaphysical beliefs about whether a creator exists or not, that's not really, I don't particularly care. What I do care about is whether people are claiming, whether people are claiming that the universe was made over the course of 6,000 years in a single 6-day creation event, or whether it was made over the course of 13.8 billion years, as the science shows. Now, when it comes to the cosmic microwave background radiation, I'm afraid this is simply not compatible with the Bible. We are talking about an extremely hot and dense plasma state, and we are talking about a calculation that all these calculations that were made using this model, using 13.8 billion years, not 6,000 years. If you can show me the creationist calculations to show me how they can possibly come out with the same results using their what are going to be mutually contradictory calculations, it's mathematically impossible. So let's see. Is there anything else? Okay. You mentioned at the beginning quasars and brightness. So how do we know that we can use brightness as a distance calculator if we can't use them with quasars? Because standard candles are not a one-size-fits-all solution. Quasars are not a standard candle. Standard candles include type 1a supernovae and Cepheid variables. These are completely different physical processes that are taking place, and we can use them because we've been able to demonstrate that they are cross-confirmed by things like redshift, by other distance measurements, parallax as well, and with each other. They cross-confirm one another independently. In fact, the reason we know that quasars cannot be used as a standard candle is because they're not cross-confirmed. This is an example of how science can engage in self-correction and show us what the parameters are of our methods. And finally, where is the energy coming from to drive the Big Bang? Well, we discussed this in the first debate. Dark energy is the name that we give it. What it is, I can't tell you. We don't know yet. What we do know is the universe is accelerating, and as you accurately pointed out, something must be causing this acceleration. So, I mean, I don't really see what we're arguing about. We agree the universe is accelerating. We agree something is causing it. You can call it whatever you want. We're calling it dark energy. So, I mean, deal with it, I guess. One more thing. I don't think you addressed my point, the point that I really want you to address. If the Big Bang Theory is not an accurate model, if it's not our best model, then why was it able to so accurately predict all of these different aspects of the cosmic microwave background radiation? These ad hoc rationalizations are just an excuse. So you're going to have to do better than that. So, your turn.
Okay. You keep saying, we made this prediction, we did this, we did that. You have a bachelor's degree. You're, 24 years old. You're working on your master's degree, and you are now taking credit for all of it. You're part of the we, I guess. I don't understand how you got into the we at your age already, but since this stuff was done in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. So we make predictions, we do that. Okay. So the red shift has been observed since 1912, as I pointed out, for about 100 years. And everybody tries to make science their own, was sort of the quote you had. I understand every group tries to say, like you said, the Muslims, look, we wash our hands and how this kills germs, and they didn't even know about germs when the Quran was written. Right. You're doing the same thing. You're trying to include, okay, you're saying, see, we have accomplished this, we have done this. The expansion of the universe, I don't know that we know that it is accelerating in its expansion. I don't know that anybody could prove such a thing. That may be a current theory. So you asked me several times the question, I guess. Again, you gish gallop, but I didn't get time to answer them all. If the Big Bang Theory is not the best answer, why were they able to predict all these things? Well, any court of law, if you're being the lawyer here, not me, in any court of law, they look at evidence and can be interpreted several different ways. And you are choosing to interpret the evidence in light of, in favor of your theory. You mentioned standard candles. Someone sent me an article. They said he's going to bring this up. He always does. An article, let's see, from cosmosmagazine.com. Supernova standard candles, not so standard after all. And it goes through all the, there's the variations within what's so-called standard candles. So to say that the brightness of something can tell you the distance without knowing all the other possible factors that could influence that, I think is a little stretch. There's a large article on this topic on Walt Brown's website. I don't know if you've ever debated Walt Brown, PhD in physics, taught at the Air Force Academy, taught physics for years at the Air Force Academy in Colorado. Creationscience.com is his website, where he has a large article on that topic, if you care to read it and try to refute it. So I think what I heard you say or imply was, yes, all this dot that you envision did contain all of the temperature and all of the mass. The total temperature of all of the stars, the total temperature, the total mass of all of the universe was in this dot. And you don't see a problem. You don't see a limit to how matter. I think there's a common sense. I don't think you can squeeze a Volkswagen into a dot the size of a period on a page with all the pressure in the world. And again, you're back to the question, where's this energy coming from to do the squishing? To say gravity is to avoid the answer or to avoid the question, because where did this gravity come from? I'm glad you said you don't know that about dark matter. Nobody does. That's the ghost in the closet causing these things to happen for you. Oh yeah, dark matter is causing it. You don't know what it is yet, but we do think that's probably it. I think what you have is a religion. You believe these things. I don't think you'll ever admit it, or you probably won't even ever actually see it. But yes, you have a religious worldview. You believe these things by faith. You believe there's no limit to how much matter can be compressed. You believe this dot contained all the temperature and all the mass. And you believe the expansion of the universe is happening, and B, is being driven by something you have no clue what it is, nor does anybody. So I wish you guys who believe in evolution would just simply admit it's a religion, and we could all get along fine. But you don't. You want it to be considered science, and you want everybody to be forced to pay for it. And as I've said many, many times, that's one of my gripes. And you ought to keep your religion at home or teach it in your own private school, but not in the public schools. Okay. Again, you gish galloped all over, so I'm trying to cover. Let's just narrow it down to one topic. Which one do you want? I'd like you to answer one topic. Do you, yes or no, believe all this dot or this cosmic or this plasma contained all of the temperature of the cumulative temperature of all of the stars that are burning in this one little tiny dot? How hot was that dot? Have you calculated the total temperature of all of the stars? The 76 sextillion of them was the last estimate I heard. What is the total cumulative temperature? How many degrees Kelvin or Celsius or Fahrenheit is that? What is your guess on that? And where did this heat come from? Go ahead.
Okay, so with regard to not being able to answer all of the challenges you put to me, I'm sorry, that's not acceptable to me. If you want to address only one of the points that I'm going to respond to, you can do that, and I'm not going to bring anything else up. But it's not going to, basically the ball is going to be in your court when it comes to make this decision. Now, the reason we teach these things in the science classroom is because these things are not interpreted, as you say, that I'm doing. I'm not being a lawyer here. We predicted this before it happens. You understand? We predicted the cosmic microwave background radiation's existence and all of these other features of it. It's not like, oh, hey, here's this thing. Let's twist it and turn it in order to make it fit our model. No, it was predicted beforehand, and you have no explanation as to why this is the case. and I insist that you give one. This is the central point that I'm trying to make. Now, I keep using the word we. You know, I'm using a colloquialism here. I'm not 24, by the way. I'm 22. And no, I was obviously not around in the 30s and 40s when these predictions were first coming to fruition. But when I say we, I mean we as in we in the scientific enterprise, we who understand and respect science, we as in my predecessors. When it comes to the dot that contains all temperature and matter, with all due respect, Mr. Hovind, I don't care about your common sense. Your common sense is utterly meaningless. Intuition is meaningless. This is the first lesson that every physicist has to learn. Our intuition when it comes to Newtonian mechanics about how all objects are accelerating the same in a gravitational field, how if you drop an elephant and a laptop off the Leaning Tower of Pisa, their acceleration is going to be identical. This defies intuition, and this is basic Newtonian mechanics. You talk about quantum mechanics. You talk the thing that allows our computers to exist, you know, with transistors and diodes and the such. You know, those things only exist because of p junctions, and those p-n junctions can only exist because of something called electron tunneling. This defies intuition. If you look into what electron tunneling is, it's literally an electron hits a barrier that it should not be able to permeate, and then it teleports to the other side and keeps on going. What kind of intuition accounts for this? None. It doesn't matter what our intuition is. What about relativity? What about different clocks in different gravitational fields? What kind of intuition is able to account for this? And yet we know it works. We know it's able to work because it's been able to accurately predict future data for the past 100 years. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but this is kind of a recurring theme. If it can accurately make novel, accurate predictions of future data, then we take it on board and we teach it in the science classroom. If not, then we throw it out. Let me see. Yeah, so when it comes to you know this intuition of how you can't fit a Volkswagen in a dot, I mean, look up neutron stars. You're going to change your mind pretty quickly. You know, when we're talking about the Big Bang, we're talking about the smallest and highest energy system conceivable. All right, we're talking about the realm of quantum field theory and at the boundaries of that field. The amount of math is crazy. It's you know, I'm no mathematician. I'm but a humble physicist. But I think that the math done by the people who are at this part of the field is beyond even most mathematicians. This stuff is simply beyond intuition. If anybody wants to speak intelligibly on these topics beyond this bare bone high school basic level that I'm trying to talk to you about it here, one has to go to these elite schools and go to these elite graduate programs and basically spend their years with their butts in the chair and reading and doing all this crazy math in order to even be able to scratch the surface, to be able to even begin to discuss such a complicated system. So when it comes to intuition and how you disagree with a theory because it contradicts your common sense, with all due respect, Mr. Hovind, I don't ever want to hear that argument again. The physicists have learned this lesson for the past 150 years, and it has been a very bitter pill to swallow. And if you're going to attack our models, you might as well swallow the pill as well. Now, when it comes to your Source in Cosmos magazine, I mentioned last time, you really shouldn't be using these kinds of sources. If you really have an objection, a serious objection, you need to go to the original peer-reviewed source, and you need to show me what the objection is. First of all, you have to read it. It's not enough to just cite it, you know, read a creationist book and say, oh, hey, they cited this, I'm going to put this on my slides. That's not okay. You have to read the actual thing, and you have to understand the argument. When it comes to brightness, yes, it can be used. As I mentioned, it's cross-confirmed by things like redshift, when we compare it to the distances we get from redshift and Hubble's law, and when we compare it to Cepheid variables. So these things are independently cross-confirmed. This is how we're able to verify these sort of things. Finally, when it comes to dark matter and dark energy, yeah, these are not the same things, Kent. You made the same confusion in our first debate. Dark matter has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about. What you're trying to describe is dark energy. when it comes to the acceleration of the expansion of the universe, this is also overwhelmingly demonstrated. You haven't been keeping up with the science of the past 20 years, but if you look at for instance, the winners of the 2011 Nobel Prize, the people who got the prize that year, it was because of their discovery that the universe's expansion is accelerating. You don't have a leg to stand on if you want to argue against this point. The evidence for it is overwhelming. I can't go over all of it right now because I don't have slides available for it, but basically it has to do with supernovae, and I will give you a link if you want to look into it further. But the fact of the matter is, I even believe that you, in the first debate, said you agreed that the universe is accelerating. So I'm not sure what changed your mind in the time in between. So, yeah, if from this point forward you want to focus on just one topic, then by all means you can respond to only one thing. But yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's just narrow this down here a little bit. You said, I believe I can't write fast enough here, different clocks go at different speeds in different gravitational fields. Explain what you mean by that? I think I agree with you, but explain what that means.
So when it comes to clocks in different gravitational fields, what this means is that when you have different, let's say for instance, I'm on Earth and we have a satellite up in orbit. The clocks are going to be running at different speeds because space-time is being, the space-time is different at these two different fields. This is one of the predictions of general relativity. So this is what I mean by clocks run slower.
Correct. Okay, so does increased gravity speed the clock up or slow it down?
It slows down time from certain observers. It depends on where you are.
So if you're breathing in the mic again, if your initial dot contained all the matter in the universe, wouldn't the gravity be pretty intense? Would that affect the clocks at all?
Yes, it would.
So could this 13.8 or 14.9 or 20.6 or whatever number they're using, could that be inaccurate based on that alone?
No. There are a couple of reasons for it with regard to the locations of the observers, as I mentioned, but the most important one is that the expansion happens so quickly that the mass density effectively canceled out this kind of extreme singularity very quickly. I mean, when we're talking about the very first moments, in this Planck time, this 10 to the minus 43 seconds, this curvature is achieving near flatness at a ridiculously fast pace. So, I mean, but in any event, if it was the case that this did have an effect on the time, I don't think it would play in your favor because in a stronger gravitational field, time is moving more slowly. In which case, the universe would actually.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get it in my favor or not. I'm trying for you to understand that if indeed gravity also affects time, it may be something to consider. Okay, dark energy. You've brought that up a half a dozen times. Has this ever been, where did it come from? What is it? And what is the hard scientific evidence for even the existence of dark energy? Explain to the listening audience, what on earth is this? And is this theoretical or is this actual?
Dark energy is the name that we give to whatever is causing the acceleration of the universe.
Which is a non-answer. You don't know. You're assuming something is causing it. Therefore,
so
I don't think I agree.
Hold on. There's an uncaused cause, is what you're saying?
Well, you don't know what dark energy is.
There are a lot of things I don't know, Kent. I don't know what you had for breakfast this morning. I don't know who your mother is, but I presume you had one. I don't know how gravity works at the quantum level. I mean, what's your point? Are you trying to pin me down on something I don't know? Because I'll give you a whole list right now.
Well, no, I'm pointing out that you're relying pretty heavily on something that is not really part of science.
I'm not relying on it at all. The Big Bang Theory stands independently of dark energy. Dark energy is only used to explain the acceleration of the expansion that we're witnessing right now.
Well, and I don't think I agreed ever in any debate that the expansion of the universe is actually, that the acceleration of the expansion is actually happening. I think that may be true. I don't think it's been proven In your mind, it's already done. It's been proven. So the universe is not only expanding, the rate of expansion is increasing.
The Nobel Committee would seem to agree with me.
Yeah, they gave Al Gore a Nobel Prize too. I'm not sure I'm too impressed with them.
Not for science.
That's for sure, or for common sense. Well, let's see.
Well, whatever. I'm not going to even get into that. But go ahead.
So the universe based on the red shift and these standard candles, which may or may not be standard, you are assuming the universe is expanding, and I think it is. I think I gave a biblical explanation that came 2,600 years before anything you came up with or any of your friends came up with, that God said he stretched out the heavens, and I don't see how anything we've observed, the fact that some 600 years before Christ, observer reading Isaiah did not come up with the question about red shift is obvious. Hello, they didn't come up with a lot of questions for a long time, but it doesn't make it not true. It doesn't make your Big Bang Theory true. I think that if we just went back and looked at those 17 verses dealing with the stretching of the heavens, we could come up with the same theories and interpret the same evidence and make it match that exactly. And then when you say, when we see the scores of verses where God said he created everything in 6 days, I don't see any way other than that for it to work with all the symbiotic relationships, which is a different field of biology. But there's and these laws like gravity, centrifugal force, all these laws that govern our universe seem to be.
But Kent, you're being a lawyer, not a scientist. What you're trying to do right now, you're the one who is trying to force science into this Bible, this literal young Earth creationist Bible-shaped box. That is not what the scientists have done. They have made predictions about future data. Lemaitre used Einstein's general relativity field equation. So did Alexander Friedman, by the way. We talked about him in a previous debate. And this prediction was verified by Hubble. The trouble is you take these sort of cryptic verses. I mean, you at the very least explain the tent part to me. When it says in Isaiah that he stretched the universe and put it like a tent, what does this tent mean?
Am I on here?
And most importantly, the most important thing, as I mentioned, the central point, how do you get the cosmic microwave background radiation in a young Earth creationist universe? It's mathematically impossible. I'm convinced of this.
I muted.
Kent, you're muted. Right
yeah,
now.
There we go. Okay, there. Yeah, I'm sure you are. You're convinced of a lot of things that may or may not be true. Okay, you asked about the tent. Let's take one topic at a time. I don't know what the Isaiah verse means about God putting it in a tent. I know there are numerous verses, and you're breathing in the mic again. Somebody is. Okay. I think the Genesis 1 clearly teaches there was water above the firmament, and the firmament's clearly where the birds fly, according to verse 20. 2 Peter chapter 3 says the earth was created in the water and out of the water, and I cover for 30 minutes on my DVD number 2 about what's called the canopy theory. There used to be a crystalline canopy a few inches thick, 10 or 15 miles up. That explains the great longevity and the giant reptiles that are found fossilized. We call them dinosaurs today. Probably used to be called dragons. But certainly giant animals have lived on the earth. Giant sloth, 18 feet tall. Something was different on the planet. At some time in its history, we have fossils of centipedes, 8 feet long, and fossils of grasshoppers, 2 feet long. I think the fossil record is replete with giantism of just about every species. And this requires a greater air pressure and less radiation probably from the sun. So the Christian theory, and it is a theory, is that there was a canopy, a tent or something above the whole world, the giant greenhouse. I would pick a number wildly and say 10 miles up, there were 2 or 3 inches thick layer of super cold ice called the canopy theory, and I cover that. But again, I'm not asking for the taxpayers to pay for my view to be taught. We do this at our own expense. But I think what is beyond, Psalm 148 says, waters that be, present tense, that be above the heavens. What is beyond the last star? Nobody knows. Maybe it all is in some kind of canopy or some kind of tent. So to say that we don't understand the Isaiah verse, therefore it's not true, we don't know where it all ends. Maybe everything we observe in this universe is sitting in a glass ball, a snow globe on God's dresser. You don't know that. I don't know that. We can't prove such a thing. So I think from our little, it's like Horton, here's the Who, the story, you know, we're all Whoville, all on this little tiny speck floating around in space. Maybe we're just not as big and bad as we think we are. And maybe we're not much in the sight of the Creator, the God of the universe. So here God is telling us that he wrote a book. God is telling us that he preserved this book. And God is telling us that he came down to earth in the form of a man, Jesus Christ. And that you are, I think, directly or indirectly, are calling all of that a lie, which you're welcome to do. But I think you're in a dangerous position. Again, Pascal's wager. This is not going to affect me at all, Judgment Day, if I'm wrong. If you're right, I haven't lost a thing. I've had a wonderful life. It's amazing. And if you're wrong, you're in real serious trouble. So, okay, but that's another story. So to answer the question about the tent, I would have to say, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But God did say it, so maybe it takes a while for science to catch up with God's word. It certainly has all through history.
Kent, I'm sorry, but this is just a cryptic interpretation. You know, you can interpret literally anything. As I mentioned, the Muslims do it with the Quran. Other people do it with the Bhagavad Gita. Everybody takes science, as I said, and uses it to pimp their own worldview. With regard to the canopy theory, I can't get into much detail right now, but I can tell you that the friction of the caused by the variations in barometric pressures across different parts of the atmosphere would have caused it to collapse very quickly. What your canopy theory is proposing is simply not physically feasible.
It's not physically feasible for everything to be in one dot, smaller than a period on a page either.
Why?
Okay, then why is the canopy theory not feasible? By what principle?
By the fact that the variance in barometric pressures would have caused friction that would have resulted in the ice canopy melting.
You wouldn't have any differential pressure, temperatures or pressures. It'd all be one even temperature. Even temperature, one even pressure. Inside of a canopy.
The atmosphere is a fluid. Its behavior is chaotic. Come on, this is basics.
What if it was compressed? Is the atmosphere inside an air compressor chamber chaotic and fluid, or is just by virtue of the pressure is it more stable?
No. A fluid is the atmosphere is a fluid. It's comprised of particles that are behaving in you have things like turbulent flow. You have to apply chaos theory to describe the dynamics of these things. There's no way you have a uniformity of pressure, even if you try to idealize the situation. I mean, basically the only way you get that is by having a vacuum. But then good luck to all the organisms on Earth.
You need to watch the Weather Channel once in a while. When there's high pressure, there are no clouds and clear sky. When there's low pressure is when you get the turbulence. That's when you get the storms, the hurricanes, the temperature.
How does that contradict what I'm saying?
Well, it's exactly opposite to what you're saying. I'm pointing out that if there were a canopy of ice above the atmosphere, squeezing our current, let's say 60 miles effective atmosphere, squeeze it down to 10 miles and cap it off with a greenhouse cap that could be suspended by the air pressure itself, like a giant inflatable dome, or could be suspended by the magnetic field of the Earth, or maybe both.
Whoa. How is the magnetic field suspending ice? What are you talking about, Kent?
At super cold temperatures, outer space is about minus 450, 3 or 4, I don't know, depending on your location, I'm sure, but Fahrenheit, or 2 degrees, 3 degrees Kelvin, or minus 172, whatever it is, 171 centigrade, whatever scale you want to use. I think everybody would agree that outer space is real chilly, close to absolute zero. So
I'm not disputing that the canopy would have been ice if it had existed. What I'm disputing is that the magnetic field is even remotely capable, even in principle, of holding up this kind of structure you're describing. I mean, what kind of physics are you coming up with?
As ice gets colder and colder, it changes its crystalline structure. Under pressure, glacial ice turns to firn, F-I-R-N, and it will flow like a plastic. Under extremely low temperatures, ice starts to become laminated. It becomes hydrogen layers, oxygen layers, hydrogen layers, rather than the six-sided crystal of typical ice, that snowflake type crystal that changes crystalline structure. And there's a large article on Carl Baugh's website about this. I can't think of the name of his website now, creationevidence.org, about the crystalline structure of ice changing at extremely low temperatures. So if there were a crystalline canopy above the Earth, and that's what the Jews have always taught, Josephus taught that. He was a Roman Well, he worked for the Roman army, but he was a Jew, captured slave. He said there was a crystalline canopy above the atmosphere. And this is in the first chapter, Josephus chapter 1. So I think this has been historically always believed that there was a crystalline canopy above the atmosphere, which nobody could have possibly known. You're breathing in the mic again. But they could not have seen such a thing or known such a thing. But if you had a crystalline canopy suspended by either air pressure or magnetic field, because super cold ice does become magnetic, and it levitates like the Japanese trains. They float them off the tracks with magnetic levitation. I don't know. It's gone. Okay, just be theoretical. But if there were a canopy squeezing the current 60 miles of air down to, say, 10 miles, you would have an increase of pressure at the surface of maybe 15, 20%. Just a guess. That would cause all kinds of interesting effects. Everything could breathe easier. Things could grow larger. They would probably be 30% oxygen instead of 21%. And that's what the amber air bubbles trapped in amber indicate, that the air used to contain 32 to 35% oxygen, which is absolutely optimum for life. You get more than that, you start to get problems, but up to 35% is wonderful. Ask any people who work in a hospital or hyperbaric chamber. It's amazing to breathe high pressure air.
Have you ever heard of Wolfgang Pauli?
I have. I don't know anything about it, but yes, I've heard the name.
Well, he had an expression when one of his students would ask him something about physics that made absolutely no sense, that was completely bonkers and that had no correspondence even to a coherent thought. He would look at them sadly and he would say, "That's not even wrong." Kent, with all due respect, what you just told me right now is not even wrong.
Neither is your idea of all the temperature being in a dot smaller than a period. That is dumb. Capital
On what
D,
principle?
dumb.
On what principle?
Common sense. Where's all this temperature coming
Kent,
from, and how
screw
you
your
squeezing
common
it?
sense. Tell me what physics prevented from happening.
What physics prevents a canopy from being above the atmosphere?
When it comes to being above the atmosphere, there are a zillion things. I can't even get into them. I want to get back to the one that I was actually addressing with regard to the differentials in barometric pressure at different points. I'm telling you, even if you can get this thing to float, I'm not even magnetic field lines. Jesus. Even if this thing were viable in the manner that you're trying to describe, the thing would not last. These differences in pressure are going to cause the differences in the turbulent flows in different parts of the atmosphere are inevitably going to cause the entire thing to collapse, and it's going to happen very quickly. I mean,
Well,
the friction is going to change the temperature. The temperature is going to crack it and melt it. There's going to be thermal expansion. It's ridiculous. Come on.
Watch the Weather Channel. You don't get the turbulent flows until there's low pressure. I tried to explain to you. With high pressure, this doesn't happen. Ask anybody with a hyperbaric chamber. There's probably one in your area. Most hospitals have one now. You change the dynamics by increasing the pressure. Some of the comments are coming up about taking questions, and I've got a 9 o'clock appointment in 12 minutes here. So
let's just get to the questions.
Well, one of the questions that I think we need to actually redress is that when we're talking about the recombination period, Kent, and the fact that the Big Bang predicted the exact temperature of what the CMB should be around 5K. It actually ended up being about 2.725K. That is a novel prediction. So the question I have to ask is since that was a novel prediction that the Big Bang model did in fact predict prior to the discovery of it, why didn't creation science predict that? And how does that not help confirm that the Big Bang model is a predictive model that works?
Well, this goes back to King Crocoduck Sinus's lawyer model. Any lawyer will tell you two people can look at the same predictions or the same evidence and come with all kinds of different theories.
Whoa. Predictions? No, Kent. Evidence.
Okay.
Not predictions.
We look at the same
they're
evidence.
Looking at the evidence.
Okay.
Hold on. They're looking at the evidence after it materializes. The Big Bang Theory predicted the cosmic microwave background radiation before it was ever dreamed about.
Okay, suppose in the movie
you have to explain why why was the Big Bang Theory capable of doing this? Why did it succeed in this?
That doesn't make it true. Suppose in the movie The Green Mile, they predicted the girls would be found dead with a black man. Oh, and yes, look at this. They're found dead with a black man. John Coffey's holding the dead girls. John Coffey didn't kill them.
Is that how the movie went, Kent? Did they predict it beforehand, or did they find it afterward and then interpret it?
You didn't listen. I said, suppose they had predicted it.
Suppose they had, then it would be a completely different story.
Oh, then it would be true that John Coffey killed him.
Yeah, it's a different story at this point. It's a different story at this point. If, for example, let's say that somebody got a tip-off that John Coffey was planning on murdering these two girls, and then they had the time and the date and the exact manner in which it would happen, and then they find John Coffey, and it matches all of the associated predictions, then yes, the evidence overwhelmingly supports his conviction in that case. But that's not what happened in the movie.
Well, okay, suppose they did predict, and suppose they had a letter from John Coffey, I'm going to kill these girls. That still wouldn't prove he did it. Any freshman law student could take that argument apart. Come on.
But Kent, not the letter. Lawyer, Kent, hold on. We're not talking. I didn't say anything about a letter. I agree that just because of a person said that he did something doesn't mean that he actually did it. There has to be physical evidence, and I gave you an example of how this physical evidence could potentially materialize and result in his conviction.
Well, we've got questions waiting for us here, but I think go back and re-listen to this and try to understand it. It is still possible for him not to have done it. Even if it was predicted ahead of time that he'd be found with a black man, and back in the 30s and 40s, they blamed everything on the black people, a lot of things. So,
okay, I'm not going to play these rhetorical games. The fact of the matter is, if you can make an accurate prediction using the physical evidence, the conviction is fully warranted. Black, white, green, purple doesn't matter. But
that is ridiculous. That statement you just made is ludicrous. It doesn't prove anything. If they predicted things, there still could be multiple other options. But let's take the questions here.
Kent, do you agree, though, that the model did successfully make a very novel prediction that creation science did not make? Do you acknowledge that?
I don't know that to be true. I don't know what all predictions have been made by who, and what if it turns out that
the prediction was.
Okay, we've been through all this. What if it turns out that one of those guys who made this prediction was a creationist, like the guy who invented the MRI machine? Whoa, he's a creationist. It makes
no difference.
What
difference does it make? That would be an ad hominem. So what's your point?
He still used physics to do it. He still used conventional physics to make that prediction. Did he not? Okay. We'll go on to the next question. Next question is by the Living Dinosaur. Many of you guys may know him. He's been around for a long time. He is back. Welcome back, Living Dinosaur. But this is not really specifically to this particular discussion with physics, but I think it's a relative question. He says, please ask Kent, what's his justification for calling evolution a stupid religion? If you really believe it's religion, then why does you feel that it's acceptable to insult it? Does that mean that you're okay with non-Christians insulting your religion? After all, wouldn't that make you a hypocrite if you think that it's okay to insult a religion?
Oh, you want to just search the internet for Kent Hovind. You want to see people insulting my religion? Sure, it happens all the time. I can handle. I got thick skin. Doesn't bother me at all. And yes, evolution, depending on which definition you use for the word, and I carefully divide it up into 6 categories, which it has to be divided to look at it. 5 of them are purely religious. You have to believe in it, which is fine. You can believe in the Big Bang. I don't care. And you can interpret the evidence to mean that to take it as a scientific fact or part of your dogma. Every religion looks at things and says, aha, see, this proves our religion is true. I mean, all of them do that.
Another example of how a creationist steals from a scientist. Listen, Kent, this evolution 6 different definitions thing, we went over this last time. I told you, this is nonsense. Evolution can be used to describe literally any phenomena that changes with respect to time. I gave you an example of how every undergraduate in physics has a textbook by Griffiths called Introduction to Quantum Mechanics, and how it has a section in it called the time evolution of the Schrodinger equation. Tell me, Kent, how does the time evolution of a Schrodinger equation fit into your 6 different types of evolution? Is this the 7th kind? What if I throw in new kinds? I mean, tell me, how does this come in?
Well, we're supposed to be we're taking audience questions here, but the evolution means unrolling. The word literally means unrolling. It can be used for all sorts of things. The evolution of the automobile from the Model T to the Lincoln Continental. You can use that word, but I give it in biological, in the textbook. I show right straight from the textbooks that they teach the 6 different meanings of evolution: cosmic, chemical, organic, which you have to get into stellar evolution. Nobody sees this. They believe it. We've never seen life come from non-living material, but that's organic evolution. It's in all Google Berkeley. Just Google organic evolution.
Google evolution of the Schrodinger equation. Google evolution of the birth control pill. Google yeah. So
the word means
okay. So there's nothing special about these specific types of evolution. You specifically select these types of evolution, and you conflate them all. in order to make them guilty by association, apparently.
So you said we went over this, and therefore, because you did not agree with something I said, therefore, I'm wrong, you're right. But let's go back to the audience questions here.
Next
In our
question.
debate.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Next question is from Helen Handbasket for Casey, actually. It is not extremely unusual for lay people to think of the Big Bang as an explosion. Can you explain in simple language why this is not an accurate view, what a better view is, and why it matters? And then Ken say whether he rejects or accepts your explanation.
Well, explosions typically refer to oxidation reactions, a sudden release. It's typically a chemical reaction that this is referring to, rather than what's actually going on with the Big Bang Theory, where you have the expansion of the universe. Now, of course, the energy is expanding with it, and in principle, there is this superficial resemblance to an explosion. But in the same vein, I could say that flatulence is the release of energy, and that this also constitutes an explosion, which I suppose some could argue that it is. But, when we think explosion, we don't typically mean flatulence. So, yeah, anyway, the distinction matters because you frequently have the straw man of, an explosion is not going to produce a universe. It's like, okay, well, fine. If you're going to blow up a bomb and you expect a universe to emerge, you're an idiot. And if you think that other people expect it, then you are either committing a straw man or you're an idiot. This is not what's being described by the Big Bang Theory. You have the expansion of the universe. Energy is moving outward. It's becoming less dense. It's becoming more cool. And you have the emergence of structures as a result of this cooling. So that's sort of the long and short of it.
Well, I would agree. The word explosion can mean a number of things. The explosion of the population, the explosion of the number of cars on the street. Sure, the word, again, you got to define your terms. But the Big Bang is, I show in my seminar dozens of textbooks where they do teach it was an explosion of a dot smaller than a period on a page. And so if you want, I say a hand grenade is the expansion of the metal fragments. It's not actually an explosion. It's the expansion of the metal fragments. Come on, it's talking about an explosion. And nobody's ever seen any expansion of materials reaccumulate. Why would the fragments of this explosion or this expansion, Big Bang, why would they accumulate into clumps like stars and galaxies? Why isn't it all just particles evenly distributed throughout all of visible space? How do we have clumps of any matter anywhere?
Gravity! Come on, Ken. This is basic physics. Gravity.
I understand gravity. I think it's probably as well as anybody. Yes, and I'm using it right now, actually, sitting on a chair. So, yes, gravity. So these particles that are flying away from each other, assuming in a radial direction from this expansion, they're going to reaccumulate. The further you go away, the farther apart they get. But they're going to somehow find each other and pull each other together, even though they're continually expanding, getting further apart. I think it's common sense 101 to say that's not logical. The fragments should be spread everywhere. So the question was...
Here we go again with the common sense. Kent, they did this experiment in space. They went into the International Space Station. They took these particles, I think it was sand or dust or something along the lines of along those lines, and they shook them around, and they saw that they spontaneously accumulated, even though they were going in every direction.
Well, yeah, out in space, I agree. That's where Uranus came from. The dumping the urine overboard on the early space flights. It followed the space capsule because that's the strongest, the biggest attraction and the biggest show in town was the thing right there. So yeah, that's
okay, but the point is, even if things are moving apart in a vacuum, the gravity is going to pull them together.
Casey, let me ask you as a follow-up to this. Would you say, though, an explosion is typically something increasing in a unit volume of space, while the Big Bang was the volume of space that was expanding itself? That's why it actually is not an explosion. But for the laypersons, for an analogy, they call it an explosion, but you'll never see that terminology used in actual scientific literature.
Yeah, it's a good point. If you think of conventional explosions in terms of somebody detonating TNT, you have the motion of objects through space, whereas with the Big Bang, what you actually have are objects embedded in their positions in space. Of course, they can move around, but the expansion of the universe is not causing it to move with respect to the space. The expansion of the universe is causing them to move away with respect to each other. And for an analogy for how you can have this take place, you can imagine a cake with raisins embedded inside of it in 3 dimensions. You put the raisins in the dough, and then you put the dough inside of the oven, and you heat it up. And as you heat it up, the dough begins to expand, and it carries the raisins with it. Now, the raisins are not moving with respect to the dough. They're moving with respect to each other, but that's because the dough is expanding. The raisins themselves are not moving with respect to the dough. So that would be the difference. This would be the analogy of the Big Bang. Whereas the analogy of a conventional explosion, the raisin is inside of there, and then it suddenly pops and it moves to other parts of the cake. So that's a significant difference.
We got about 5 minutes left, so let's go ahead and do your closing statements. Normally, Kent, do you go last? Do you want to go first this time?
It does not matter. Let the young fellow just do whatever he wants. What would you like?
You go ahead, Kent.
Well, I believe, as I started off saying, that the Bible is literally true. There is plenty of evidence the universe cannot possibly be billions of years old. Looking at the Big Bang or the redshift or the cosmic background radiation can easily be explained by exactly what the Bible taught, even though it may be that an evolutionist or an atheist even discovered this cosmic background radiation. Oh, well, I'm sorry that some creationist or some Christian or some Bible believer didn't discover it first. It may be true. Still doesn't have anything to do with proving evolution is true. So I think the position for Pascal's wager that my position is perfectly safe and fine. Either way, I win. One way, you lose. And I think that you have to wonder if we are indeed nothing but particles that came from an explosion or an expansion of the universe. Your mind then would be nothing but a bunch of material from this space dust. And I'm not sure how you can trust your own thoughts or your reasoning processes or conclusions you come to. It may have a chemical in there backwards. So you're trusting your own logic and intuition, which intuitively is untrustworthy because it's nothing but random chemicals formed by chance over billions of years. So I've seen nothing tonight or in any of our discussions or debates to make me want to reject the clear teaching of God's word that he did it in 6 days. And it's only, well, I say only is a bad word. 6,000 is a long time. 6,000 years ago is a long time, but that's what the Bible clearly teaches. And I think that everything we see in space or on the planet or in the planet can be explained by the clear teachings of God's word. So I think I'll stick with my Bible. And Jesus said the creation of Adam was the beginning. I believe he was right. And Jesus clearly said, and all through the Bible, we see there's going to be a judgment day one day. Every word we've ever spoken is going to be brought into account. There's something innate in humans to want to see the bad guy get it in the movies. You know, the guy who's going around killing people, you say, man, somebody ought to stop him. I think that just the fact that that's innate in us is indication that there's something of a moral conscience that had to be embedded by the Creator, because he is going to settle all scores. The bad guy is going to get it. It's according to the Bible. There will be a judgment day. There will be a test at the end of this, and this whole conversation will be replayed, every word. Only this time, God Himself will be the judge and answer all the questions if you really want one. So yeah, I'll stick with my Bible. I think it's literally true, and I think it leads to a wonderful society if everybody tries to follow that. Certainly makes you better fathers, better husbands, better brothers. I think I think the evolution theory that we're just random particles is going to lead to chaos in society. If everybody believed that, I think it would lead to absolute chaos. But that's a different topic of the moral implications of what you believe versus what I believe. But I think scientifically, everything can be explained exactly like I showed you from God said 17 times he stretched out the universe. That's what he said. Okay?
All right, thank you, Kent. Go ahead, KC.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to really briefly address this chaos in societies where people accept evolutionary theory and science. I mean, this is, with all due respect, this is the height of intellectual cowardice. Look at the people on my screen and tell me that it's conceivable that a person can hide behind their Bible and say that the scientific matter has something to do with morality. This conflation it's distasteful. Chaos in societies which accept scientific theories. I'm sorry, Kent, but if you compare, for instance, Japan to Saudi Arabia, and compare the people who accept evolutionary theory in one, anywhere in the Middle East, very religious places, you're going to, and compare it to these other societies. I mentioned Japan, and I could mention the United Kingdom, for a time. I could mention any number of them. The point is, your prediction that you see more chaos in a society that accepts the science, it's simply not true. But the main point I want to make is actually on this part right here. You came up with a straw man just now about how it's supposedly because an evolutionist discovered the cosmic microwave background radiation, suddenly it's true. This was not the argument at all. Look at the first part of this. A scientific theory's strength relies on its predictive power. How accurately does it make novel, testable predictions about future data? And I think that you and I have both come to agree, even though you don't think that this makes it a good model, even though, it kind of does. The fact that this was predicted exclusively by the Big Bang Theory, and that this was done exquisitely over the course of several decades, lends more strength to the Big Bang Theory than the young Earth creationist model has ever had. So I'm sorry, but you simply don't have a leg to stand on. Compare what I've brought to the table in terms of, it's not just the interpretation of evidence, it's the actual prediction of data that we have at our disposal. All right, we're not looking at the same evidence and interpreting it differently. We predicted what evidence we should be interpreting in the first place. Okay, this is not at all a level playing field. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thanks, Casey. Well, we're going to wrap this up. I want to thank both our debaters tonight, King Crocoduck and Ken Hovind, and to all of you who watched this debate. I also want to shout out to Paula Gia, who produced a magnificent trailer to promote this debate, as well to Godless Cranium, who also helped promote this event on his channel. If you haven't subscribed to either of their channels, please do so, as they both have extremely wonderful content, very much worth watching, and the links to their channels are below. So please go subscribe to them as well. Subscribe to King Crocoduck and Ken Hovind on Ken Hovind Official. If you'd like to be a part of these debates and join in the conversation, the link to join the Great Debate community is also in the links below. And there will be an after show in about 20 minutes or so on this channel, and all are welcome to join. And we will see you then. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
All right, you're live.
Start broadcast. All right, Nolan, thank you for being willing to do this. You can forget about recording. It's wasting time. Everybody's been waiting a half hour. Let's just go, and you just tell us what you want to talk about, and we'll send you a copy. We're recording it here.
All right.
All right. Nolan?
Here
we go.
Like, when you talk, it wasn't as loud as, I think it was Steve. I'm just letting you know.
Okay, now I got the phone closer now. Is that better?
Yes, that is.
All right. All right, I'm Kent Hovind. This is June the 15th, 2017. And Nolan Fields, where are you located? What state or country?
Savannah, Georgia.
Savannah, okay. And you wanted to go first and defend the position of evolution. Is that correct?
Well, I will defend it as long as you will defend your creation alternative.
I certainly will.
I'll give, and we can go in discussion and stuff back and forth. And then I'd like us to both give each other some questions, if you're okay with that.
Oh, yeah. Sounds great.
Once in a while.
Okay.
Sounds great.
So, Nolan, you are...
1 second. I can't hear you. I get my headphones out. All right, go ahead.
All right. You want to give a little background to who you are? And you said you wanted to go first and intro on the topic, and give your position, and then I'll give my position, and we'll go back and forth. All the questions you want.
Well, my first opening is going to be like 10 minutes.
Go for it. You're on.
Okay. Before I get into this, I'm going to tell you who I am. My name is Nolan Fields. I actually like science. I don't just pay lip service to it like I believe Kent does. He'll tell you he likes science, and then he'll turn around and tell you that all the science that disagrees with his literal interpretation of the Bible isn't science, which includes major parts of biology, taxonomy, geology, paleontology, archaeology, or any science that involves dating specimens ranging from extinct organisms to rock strata. I'm half Kent's age, but even since I was in high school, I've known that you come across some evidence. If you come across some evidence, especially evidence that conflicts with an entire model that has been put forth by science, which has been studied and peer-reviewed constantly, then the evidence should be fact-checked and scrutinized very carefully, very thoroughly. Because if this evidence was so great, why hasn't any of the millions of scientists who come from all walks of life, who are Christian, who are Jewish, who are agnostic, atheist, and come from all different races and ethnicities and different countries and more and what have you. So why haven't these scientists published a paper in a peer-reviewed journal contesting the age of the universe at 13.8 billion years, or the age of the Earth at 4.5 to 4.6 billion years? It seems like something any up-and-coming scientist would love to do, to make a name for himself by challenging the current model, and if his evidence can stand up to the scrutiny, then perhaps gaining fame and fortune along the way. A Nobel Prize would be a guarantee. Many of them, probably a shelf. Are these scientists being silenced? Of course not. It's an easy thing to claim, but show your evidence and why you should be listened to. Alfred Wegener died before plate tectonics was accepted, but he never stopped trying, and others followed his work and refined it. And finally, Dr. Jack Oliver made plate tectonics one of the best scientific theories and finds in the 20th century, an honor bestowed upon only the best explanations for natural phenomena. I repeat, natural phenomena. But in reality, all of Kent's young Earth claims have already been soundly refuted because they are based on bad science, bad math, a misunderstanding of certain phenomena, a misunderstanding of how those phenomena interact with the Earth, and many other problems. And believe you me, if he brings any of them up today, I will be sure to refute them to the best of my ability. And even if one or two of them aren't answered, to this very day, even by scientists, that doesn't make the world, that isn't just like, 6,000 years old. What would make more sense? The Earth was created 6,000 years ago by a Jewish God, while humanity learned about good and evil by eating a piece of fruit they heard about from a talking snake in a tree, or that scientists haven't figured everything out yet and they might one day. Like evidence that may appear to be for a young Earth. This is a God that gaps logic anyway. People back in the day said earthquakes were from God. Or they would say the thunders and rain were from God. Anything they didn't understand, floods, hurricanes, you name it, they would blame it or they would attribute it to the gods. That's why there were gods of thunder, gods of fire, gods of death, gods of stuff they couldn't understand, God. And now we've knocked all those dominoes over. And then when evolution came, after 150 years of refining it, we've knocked over the domino of special creation in their current forms 6,000 to 10,000 years ago, which, by the way, is even losing track in the United States. I watched a Ken Am thing the other day, and he said this. See, now we know better, okay? Whatever science can't answer, people say God did it. I hope they live long enough to see science answer those questions, just so I can see the look on their face. Back to you, Kent, and on to evolution. Kent's understanding of evolution is either one of willful ignorance or one of misunderstanding. He says that macroevolution is change in organisms from one kind to another. This is not the definition of macroevolution. Macroevolution is evolution on a scale at or above the level of species, in contrast with microevolution, which refers to smaller evolutionary changes of allele frequencies within the species of a population over time. Macro and microevolution describe fundamentally identical processes on different time scales. It would be like believing in inches, but not believing in miles. Speciation, the changing of one species into another, actually falls under macro and microevolution. And Dr. Hovind has admitted he believes in speciation. So to some extent, he believes in macroevolution, which, but it's just his version of microevolution is change in the kinds. That's not what it is. because until you get a definition of the word, quit using it. And besides, his definition of macroevolution, which is change outside of the kind, like a chain from one kind to another, would actually falsify the theory of evolution. If a hippo gave birth to an alligator, or to a whale, or to a manatee, or to any other distinct animal that was not their species, that would falsify evolution. So what you're asking for on number 5, macroevolution, what you're asking for them to give you is something they don't say can happen and can't happen. That is part of the thing. That's part of their theory. Anyway, his definition of kind is ambiguous, but it is obvious that it's above the species level because he believes horses and zebras are the same kind when they are different species with different numbers of chromosomes. And Asiatic elephants and African elephants are the same kind when they are not even in the same genus. They are in the same family. They can't bring forth, so I guess they're different kinds. Oddly enough, chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, and humans are all in the same family as well. But I bet you won't say that humans belong in the same kind as them. But he will say apes are the same kind, ignoring that humans are apes. But if any of these animals were to have offspring of a different kind, then it would falsify the theory of evolution. No scientific theory would be so dumb to claim offspring of an organism could be of a different species, much less different kind. All organisms of the same species have offspring that are the same species. Again, all organisms of the same species have offspring of the same species. And let's see, to believe in huge jumps, even to a different species in one generation, is patently absurd. The reason we see so many different species of insects, over 1 million right now, and probably 10 million, including hookworms and stuff, and only one species of such animals like the elephants and the humans, is because their generations are much shorter than ours, so much more, and we have so much opportunity to undergo speciation, while we do not. Our generation time is 25 years. An elephant's is 25 years, plus 2 years gestation. I must stress that micro and macroevolution are the same things over different time scales. And I said, believing in one and not the other is believing in inches and not in miles. Or seeing part of the Transcontinental Railroad, not believing it stretches from one coast to the other, because you can't see it all at once. We can't play the tape back, but we can look at the parts that were saved. This is the fossil record. Another thing Kent horribly misunderstands. He'll say, there's not a fossil record, there's bones in the dirt. That's what the fossil record is. It's like saying, that's not a car. That's just an internal combustion engine with 4 wheels that starts with a key and you press gas pedals and brakes. No, that's not a car. You just defined a car, sir. Nah, never mind. Anyway, whether on purpose or I cannot say if he misunderstands for that reason. But the fossil record and the record of the DNA of organisms, mainly amongst many other things, a big part of science is inference. You'll never hear Kent talk about inference because it makes his side look bad and it will make his assault on evolution weaker. For example, in the mid-19th century, as many as 60 elements and hundreds of isotopes have been found. And the periodic table as we know it, it wasn't even constructed until the 20th century. But people worked to construct it in the 19th century. But while constructed, people noticed there were gaps in the periodic table. It's like, gaps? I don't understand. How can there be gaps? And it's like, there were certain elements that were missing, they said. Of course, they needed time to find these elements, but they could predict and infer what properties the element would have, such as the melting point, density, atomic weight, color, whether it was a gas, solid, or liquid at room temperature. And later, when they found out about protons, neutrons, and electrons, they could predict the number of those as well. The predictions weren't always 100% correct, especially since atomic mass can differ slightly from the expected pattern. But they were always close if they weren't always right. There were gaps in the record of the elements, but with inference, scientists made some predictions and what would be expected. And these gaps were subsequently filled as chemists discovered additional naturally occurring elements. They eventually filled the table completely, and the puzzle was complete, at least for naturally occurring elements. It's the same with evolution today, except it's a much larger puzzle and many more predictions. Many parts of the puzzle are filled in, and a pattern is showing up. One that has allowed for scientists to use inference to figure out what they would expect to find, where they expect to find it, how long ago they expected the organism to exist. Of course, if Kent lived back in the 19th century and his interpretation of the Bible caused him not to accept the periodic table, then he would have argued, there's no evidence for some of these elements. They haven't observed them, they haven't experimented with them, they haven't tested them to find out their properties. That's a religion, that's not science. Yeah, it's make-believe. Until you show me 100% assailable proof, then I won't accept it, and I still might not. But no one would be so crazy as to not accept the periodic table now. It's there for anyone to see and fact check. Evolution is not at that point yet where it's 100% assailable, but where there's no more new finds or more predictions to make or things to be falsified. One day, maybe. I mean, microevolution has already been accepted by the Christians, or most of the Christians that didn't believe in it, and because it was absurd and ought to argue against them. They can still fall back on their observing it to happen, so they'll never accept the theory of evolution. But they don't observe horses and zebras undergo speciation, but they accept it. Why accept that, but you don't accept the other? Because it's self-serving. They accept the speciation because they need a super hyperdrive version of evolution in order to have all the different species there are today, because they want to limit the amount of animals on the ark in order to make the fable almost plausible. Also, please everyone, fact check this debate. I implore everyone to check up on what I say and what he says about all these topics. I don't know everything, and nor does Kent, even though Kent claims to know more about what science is than scientists in most cases. One last thing before I close, please fact check this debate, like I said, but if either of us is wrong on a point of fact, please point it out in the comments. We all make mistakes. Sometimes they come from laziness and willful ignorance. The internet and the libraries are at our fingertips. Another thing, Kent calls chapters on evolution lies. Well, I'm calling many of his claims then lies. He is so blinded by his religious belief that he won't answer or will dodge the questions about his lies by changing the subject later on in this debate. Watch. I will only have time to go through a small amount of the lies he teaches, and yet he still sells those DVDs, lies included at no extra charge. On the website, just to let you know, I'm not selling anything. I don't have a YouTube channel. I'm not making anything off this. I don't have a financial stake in keeping people donating to my 100+ acre work camp out in nowhere, Alabama. He counts on the very people watching this debate to feed his belly and to buy him four-wheelers and to donate land and palm trees and motorhomes, because he's financially dependent upon the flock. He has no shame in finding new ways to fleece them, probably starting with this debate. Anyway, I have a lot more for everyone to hear, lies straight from Kent's mouth to point out, and a few branches of science to defend, since they don't agree with Kent's literal interpretation of Genesis. Sorry for the length. Brevity is the word from now on. I'm done.
Well, Nolan, thank you for doing this. There have been probably 6,000 or 8,000 people who have refused to debate the topic. We have tried. I'm willing to debate anytime. You seem well, yeah, you seem incredibly angry and bitter at something. I think maybe.
Oh no!
No, you're not angry. No,
I'm not angry, sir.
Not angry. Okay, that it just came across.
I promise you. If I seem angry, that's my problem. I apologize. I'm not angry at you at all. Actually, I watch all your videos, and I'm actually. You can ask my girlfriend; she'll tell you that I seem obsessed with this.
You do seem a little obsessed.
Thing, talking to you,
right.
But I'm not mad at you, like per se. Make money how you can. I just
And
wish
you
that
think
maybe
that's all?
after I explain some of the lies later,
All right.
maybe you'll change them.
It's my turn to talk, by the way.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm trying. Okay. My name's Ken Hovind. I taught high school science and math 15 years. I happen to like science, and he said that I give lip service to it only. I have to disagree. We're building a science center where we have all kinds of activities that teach different science lessons about inertia, physical science, earth science, biology, and each one will also have a spiritual application. Now, quick intro, kind of did that earlier on our YouTube, but I'm going to skip right straight to answering some of the things that Nolan has said here. And then, Steve, there's no timer here. I don't know how long he went. I don't
18 minutes.
18 minutes, okay. So it is now 12:13. Okay, I'll try to go same time or less. Okay. You've named a whole bunch of branches of science, anthropology, biology, or science, as if that is somehow evidence. Just simply naming a branch of science does not mean it's evidence.
Right there on that box. Look, see it? 1214 on that box.
Yeah, okay, I got one here. Okay, I'm gonna watch. Got it. All right. And you talk about mentioning publishing things in peer-reviewed journals. I think that idea has been bantered around and discussed for the last 100 years among creationists and evolutionists, both alike. So why do so many believe in evolution was a question you asked. That's a great one. I think you'll find I could ask the same thing. Why do so many believe in creation? There's thousands of scientists who believe in the young Earth creation, and 6,000 is not young. 6,000 is a long time. It's hard to remember 200 years ago, and when they were just discovering the western part of the United States. Okay, so 200 is a long time. 6,000 is a really, really long time. But as far as you said I don't believe in plate tectonics and stuff like that. I certainly do. I think there's a different reason for it. Now, let me talk here. Okay, I produced a special slide just for you, Nolan. Now, Steve, to get back to, let's see, Alt Tab, my slides. No, that is not the one. That's my wife. Let's see, 6, 4. Okay. You mentioned evidence and inference, okay? This textbook says the whale's pelvis is evidence of its evolution from four-legged land-dwelling animals. Well, I have to respectfully disagree. This is my video number 4, is lie number 14 of the 50-some lies I cover. Here's the bone they're talking about right here. In what would we consider the abdomen area of the whale, they have these special bones. It's obviously a bone with blood supply and nerve supply. And it is the attachment for quite a few muscles that allows whales to reproduce. Whales have to mate underwater in the dark with no hands and a giant tail in the way. The male's penis will be 15 feet long in some species, and they have to be able to maneuver it without hands. So this is part of their reproductive system. Now, the evolutionists have interpreted that to be evidence that they used to have 4 legs and walk on land. A couple of things I'd like you to consider. Some large female whales have similar, though distinct, bones. Do I need to be on that one? Or no?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I just put it so they can see you here.
Okay, good. To assist them in mating. Ambulocetus here is mostly imagination. The dark bones are the only ones they actually found. But they put this out as proof that we evolved from a rock 4.6 billion years ago. It's in all the textbooks. The red bones here on this bottom picture were actually found 5 meters, about 16 feet, above the other bones. This is what they actually found. By the time they put it together, it becomes a creature. No pelvic bones were found at all, it says right here, and little is known about the tail. This is from a published scientific journal, like you talked about, okay? Basilosaurus is not an intermediate. The serpentine form of the body, in particular, peculiar serrated cheek teeth, make it plain that these could not possibly have been ancestral to any of the modern whales. Published journals are saying, look, there is no real technical scientific proof for whale evolution. But I want to get to a bit bigger picture here. They reconstruct things all the time. Here's from Berkeley University, article on evolution I took today, June 15, 2017. Hippos likely evolved from a group of these critters 15 million years ago. The evolution of whales. Here's a picture they show on their website. Look at all these pictures. Here's proof right here, boys and girls, how the whales evolved from this type of creature. Here's another picture right straight from the Berkeley website. This is said the bones in red were found 5 meters above the rest of the skeleton. Now, it is a fact. Bones were found in the dirt or rock, okay? That's a fact. The evolutionists have an interpretation or an inference they make from that, and so do the creationists. The evolutionist says they are evidence of one kind of animal changing into another. The creationist says it died. The fact is the bones were found in the dirt, and the proper interpretation of that is it died. End of story. Now, if you want to try to erase that line and make your interpretation part of the fact, I think you got a serious problem. Let me give you an analogy that'll help. There's a classic movie made years ago called The Green Mile by Tom Hanks, with Tom Hanks starring in it. In that movie, 2 girls were missing. They were kidnapped. A massive manhunt was organized. According, I know it's all Hollywood, but let's call that a fact as far as the movie goes. Okay. It's a fact. John Coffey was found holding the 2 dead girls. When the manhunt arrived, there he is holding the 2 dead girls. Okay. So here we have the facts. The girls were missing. The girls are now dead. They're found in the arms of John Coffey. Fact. He is arrested and executed for that crime based on a false inference. Here's what you need to look at, and I'm trying to help you, Nolan. I'm going to use small words so the other atheists who are watching can understand what I'm saying here. No fossils could possibly count as evidence for evolution. Number 2, bones in the dirt indicate something died. Number 3, bones can't talk. Number 4, they don't have a date stamped on them or come with a plaque telling their story. Number 5, someone is putting their interpretation on these bones to tell what happened to them. No plant or animal today can produce anything other than its kind, as you mentioned in your speech. No animal has been observed producing anything other than its kind. And you can use the word species if you'd like. It's never been observed. Number 7, why should we think bones found in the dirt could do something that no animal today could possibly do? Why could it happen long ago and far away and can't happen today? Number 8, who would each of these millions of so-called transitional species marry? They have to have another one evolving similar and be able to pass on this new genetic structure. Number 9, if there was a new and improved animal, wouldn't all the rest of the old variety have to die to make this really work? Or else they get swamped back into the population. Number 10, there is no proof that any of the bones they found in the dirt had any offspring. That's why no fossil would count in a court of law as evidence for anything in an honest court of law, if they exist. All you know is it died. You couldn't prove it had any children. Number 12, the offspring of this new species would face the same, or they certainly couldn't prove, number 11, couldn't prove they had any kids that lived. Even if you could somehow prove they had kids at all, you couldn't prove those kids lived long enough to produce another generation. You couldn't prove such a thing. The offspring of this new species would face the same problems of finding a mate and wiping out the old population. So let me get back to where I was here, right there. Okay. I would point out, I do believe in scientific evidence. I love studying science. It's the inference that I'm confused, that why you would come to the inference that you do. The evidence points to the fact that animals and plants always produce the same kind of offspring, as you so eloquently said. I agree. That's all anybody has ever observed. And that's what real science is. Inference may or may not be correct, as we saw with John Coffey and the Green Mile movie, and 1,000 other things happen through history where someone makes the false inference from the facts. Okay, let me try to hit some of your thing. You said in the 1500s or 1700s something, people equated earthquakes, floods, thunder, etc. as coming from God. Okay, Nolan, I taught earth science for 15 years. I think I understand what causes thunder and lightning. I think I understand what causes earthquakes, mudslides, landslides, tsunamis. I'll be glad to discuss any of that with you. And I do not think it's a mystical, give it a mystical explanation of, well, God did it. Okay, I think there are physical science explanations for many things, most things that happen. There's a physical, so I don't put me in the category of somebody from the 1600s who believes something stupid. That's not me, okay? I think I understand, if anybody does, a little bit about what tornadoes causes them. Temperature changes and about inversion. We can talk about all that. I'll be glad to have a quiz against you on any of these topics. Okay, bring out the test. Let's take it. Let's see who's got the truth, okay? So you said they knocked over the domino of special creation. Well, you might think they did, but no, they didn't. The only logical explanation for the fact that we have all these thousands of kinds of animals is we have the fact that they exist. Let's say there's, pick a number, 8,000 or 10,000 different kinds of animals on the planet now, different kinds. It's a fact. I think everybody's going to agree that different animals exist. It is not a fact that they're related. That is your interpretation you've tried to slap on this evidence. It is not a fact that any of them are related. You may want to believe that, and I think you do want to believe that for whatever reason, but it's not part of the fact column. You did not knock over any dominoes. You said, now we know better, as if you are part of the group that knows better, and I don't think you know any such thing. How you get into the we category, I don't know. You said Kent has a willful ignorance or misunderstanding. That's the only two options you gave, Nolan, neither of which is correct. It's like me saying which is correct. 5 and 5 is 11 or 5 and 5 are 11. Neither one. It's 10. Okay. So you gave two false options. I'm not ignorant or misunderstanding any of this. And I resent you saying that. Okay. Pick one particular topic if you'd like, and we'll stick on it until you admit you're wrong or want to weasel out and go to some next topic. Okay. They're not the only two choices. You said micro and macro only differ in scale. Well, that you're welcome to believe that if you'd like, but that's not scientifically observable. Nobody's ever seen these little micro changes add up to anything other than micro changes. They stay within the same kind. Farmers have been trying for generations to breed bigger cows, bigger pigs, bigger corn, whatever. You take any plant or animal you want. They've been working hard to work. There are now 339 recognized species or breeds of dogs in the world by the American Kennel Association. They're still a dog. And they were created by some man selecting that. The Russians did experiments for 50 years now selecting foxes for tameness. Fox has a bunch of babies, kits they call them. They select the most tame, allow them to reproduce, and puts the next generation. Pretty soon you've got a whole generation of pretty tame foxes running around. Okay, that's interesting. That indicates the original gene code of the original fox contains a variety to produce from vicious to tame, and they've been selecting toward the tame end. They didn't get any foxes that turned into anything other than a fox. It's still the same kind of animal, recognizable as the same kind. Now, if you want to dream that long ago and far away it was able to happen differently, you can. Or if you want to dream that adding more time will somehow solve this problem, you're welcome to. I think there may be something similar to what we might call a mean gene in humans. People that get just vicious and mean and go around want to kill other people, sometimes, you know, if we allow them to reproduce, that's going to pass that on. Some whole civilizations seem to be pretty ferocious. I know in the Indian culture and some of the Indian tribes here in America, hundreds of years ago, they wanted everybody to be rough, tough, mean, and the kids had to go through a test to become a brave and all that kind of stuff. So pretty soon they all started to be a little more violent, I guess. I know they use a lot of Indians now for building the big skyscrapers because they seem to be fearless. Go up there on that 100-story building and walk out on the beams. You know, I don't want to do that. So there seems to be a genetic disposition to certain attitudes, and I think we see that in dogs. Some are more tame, some are more vicious, some are used for pit bull fighting type stuff. Some are used because they're real friendly with kids, but they're still a dog. Still a dog. So the micro changes that we see going from a Great Dane to a Chihuahua are limited to the same kind of animal, still a dog. No examples of anything other than that. You're welcome to believe it goes beyond that if you'd like, and I'm sure you do believe it goes beyond that, but that's not observable science. It's part of your religion. It is something you believe in. And you might even convince everybody to believe in it. Okay, that still doesn't make it true. In communist China, they've convinced all their people, you better do it this way or you're going to get your head cut off or you're going to go to jail or whatever. Okay, so everybody does it this way. That doesn't make it right. Just because a majority believes something. We have thousands of examples through history where the majority has followed somebody and they've been wrong. Take a look at Nazi Germany, World War II, or Japan for 100 years before World War II. Okay, so I do not believe anybody's ever observed any of these what we call micro changes add up to anything other than the same kind of animal. I'd like to see not just a theoretical, not just a drawing, not just an artist's conception, or drawing, put the two animals and connect them with a line to some common ancestor. Drawing a line on the paper is not science. It's artwork. And that's all evolution is based on, artwork. And you said the word kind is ambiguous. Let me clarify that for you, Nolan. The Bible says if they bring forth after their kind. Now, if it is indeed true that the African and Asian elephant cannot bring forth, I don't know that that's true, but let's assume that it is. I never thought about it, never tested it. Okay. Let's assume the African elephant cannot bring forth live offspring. That would leave me with two options. I would say, okay, they are a different kind, or they used to be able to, but now have diversified to where they can't. That can happen. You can have Great Danes and Chihuahuas that probably can't mate and produce offspring without killing one of them. The mother, probably, if the mother's a Chihuahua. Okay, it's still the same kind of animal. So that wouldn't prove anything beyond what the Bible teaches they can bring forth after their kind. I'll say a couple of quick notes, and then I'll let you have yours. You mentioned the fossil record, and indeed I do say, and have said, and will say again, there is no such thing as a fossil record. There is no fossil record, Nolan. There are bones in the dirt. Now, you want to make it into a record and put your date and your time and your interpretation on that. Well, I'm not going to allow that at my expense in the public schools. I'm going to fight that till I die. You could start your own private school and teach that whatever you want to teach to anybody. But when you find a bone in the dirt, it is not part of a record. There is no date stamped on it. There is no sign with it. There is no proof it had any children, especially children that lived or children that were different. And why on earth would you think a bone in the dirt is capable of doing something that no animal today can do? You're welcome to believe that, but it's not science. It's not even common sense. I talk about DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, ribonucleic acid. I taught biology. I'd be glad to have a quiz against you on that topic if you'd like. DNA is incredibly complex. The code that's running your computer right now, how many lines of code are there for PowerPoint or Microsoft Word? I mean, it's into the tens of thousands of lines of code. Many times these different programs have thousands of identical lines, like probably the spell check in PowerPoint is identical to the spell check in Microsoft Word. What does that prove? That they both evolved from Morse code, or that they're all using a common designer to design the code? The DNA is evidence of an incredibly intelligent designer. I don't know why you're running from him. And you said you'll never hear Kent talk about inference. I think you just did. I think inference is wonderful, but it needs to be cautious. John Coffey died in the movie because of a wrong inference from the evidence. I think you are accepting a wrong inference from the evidence. The evidence is a lot of animals have similarities, 2 bones in the arm, etc. That's the scientific evidence. We got 2 bones, radius and ulna. So does the whale, so does the chipmunk. It's not science to say that proves common ancestor. You can believe it if you want, and I think you want to believe it and do believe it. Okay. Yes, I agree. We should fact check all of this. Most Christians do not believe in micro, did not believe in micro. I think you're totally wrong on that one, Nolan. I think all through history, people have known variations can happen, but they always stay within the same kind. There have been farmers for 4,000 years producing things like wheat and corn and cows and chickens that they get a lot of varieties. And they try to get a variety that matches their environment, whether it's cold climate, warm climate, rainy climate, whatever. They've developed some amazing varieties, but they're always the same kind. So you say now Christians accept microevolution. We always have. We do not accept, which I think would imply believe, which implies a religion to me. We do not believe that it goes anything beyond that. You do. Okay, believe what you want. I'll see you at Judgment Day and find out who's right. So please do fact check. As far as the ark being a fable, you're welcome to believe that. I think the idea that we all came from a rock 4.6 billion years ago is an insane fable. If you want to believe that, you're welcome to. And if you want to think you're related to chimpanzees or monkeys or apes or anything else, you believe whatever you want. But it's not science. It's not logical. It's not common sense. Okay, Kent calls evidence from science lies. I do not. I do list 50-some lies in the textbooks on my video number 4, which I'll be glad to share with you. Am I wrong when I said the whale bones, all they found were these certain bones, and they have now interpreted them to mean common ancestor? That's exactly correct. Maybe we need an honest judge and take this to a court of law and say, hold it. Who is sharing science and who is sharing inference here, and who is misinterpreting the evidence? I cover 50 lies in the textbooks on my video number 4, DVD number 4, right here, lies in the textbooks. Pick any one you'd like, Nolan, and let's duke it out right here, right now, or call back and do it again later next week or some other, as many times as you want. I'll debate you live on YouTube or Facebook or any other way. You pick on one of my lies, just send me the best 1 or 2 or 3 you'd like to discuss. I'll prepare to defend myself on those topics. Okay. Kent has no shame. I don't know what you mean by that. I love the Lord. I believe the Bible. I'm going to stand before God one day and be judged. I do not want to lie. I do not deliberately lie on any topic. I want the truth to be told. You're going to stand before God too one day. I'm going to say, Lord, I tried to warn him. He didn't want to listen. And this tape's going to be played back at your trial. We'll see how that works. Your turn.
Okay. Well, for starters, the word religion means any cultural system of designated behaviors and practices, worldviews, texts, sanctified places, ethics, or organizations that relate humanity to the supernatural or transcendental. There's no way you can call evolution a religion, because it has nothing to do with the transcendental or the supernatural. There's no text for them. There's no sanctified places, cultural system, any of that. And the other thing the other definition you use, fossil record, real quick. This is what fossil record definition is: the totality of fossilized artifacts and their placement within the Earth's rock strata. Oh, they do exist. So the fossil record is real. You just want to call it something else. It's kind of like how you don't like calling pharyngeal gill arches. You don't like calling them that. But you have no problem saying tailbone. It's kind of weird. The tail? I don't have a tail. Why are you calling it that? Another thing that I wanted to say. You want me to give you some of these things that you've said that aren't true? They're lies. Are you ready? I'll find them for you real quick, and I'll give them to you. And I'd like, this can be a conversation between us guys.
No, I'm keeping the clock. I'm watching. Whatever time you take, I want the same time without interruption. You take as long as you want.
I understand. But at some point, I want us to have a discussion. All right, here we go. CSC class 103, no, 103 class 7. You give the communist rules for revolution, and you go through 10 of them and spend 30 minutes on it. Guess what? It's false. It's a hoax. Never existed. It existed, but it was never written by communists for ways to do anything. And let's see if I can give you some more here. This one. Those who cast the votes decide nothing. Those who count the votes decide everything. You gave that for Joseph Stalin. False quote. The only person who said anything similar would be Boss Tweed of Tammany Hall. He said something similar. Joseph Stalin wasn't really concerning himself with elections. I don't know if you remember. Here we go. This year will go down in history. For the first time, a civilized country had full gun registration. Adolf Hitler, that one about gun things, false. Did not say that. One drop of water will cover the world if you spread it real thin. No. It takes 150 tons of water to cover the world with one monolayer of water. Also, the crime statistics that you gave for Australia after they did gun control. Let's see. They went down, not up. I thought they went up. You said they went up, and that was your reasoning. Here they are right here. When they implemented it, and then it looks like robbery went down to, it went from over 80,000 victims to 60,000. And it looks like
Nolan,
sexual.
hang on, I hate to interrupt, but Nolan, you have a list you have. This is wonderful. Let's go back and do these one at a time, because the listeners are going to get lost. You're going to list 10 things, and I'm going to go back and answer 10 things. Okay, you started off by saying your definition of religion and evolution is in no way a religion.
It's not. How can it be a religion? How can a Christian believe in evolution or accept evolution, and now they have two religions?
Well, they need to, no, it's simple. They need to watch my seminar so we can get them straightened out.
It seems like more and more people are moving away from that brand.
I know. I've got job security, don't I?
No, more and more are moving away from. I guess you have job security in the case that you could get more to you, but people are leaving. There's a reason.
Well, yeah, because all the taxpayers are paying for your religion to be taught in the schools. That's the way. That's sure convincing a lot of kids.
Do you know how much evolution is taught in high school.
What,
1 to 2 weeks.
it's all through
And
the textbooks.
so 1 to 2 weeks out of 36 weeks a year, out of 7 classes. Okay, so we're looking at 36 times 7 is 252. So 2 hours out of 252 hours, or 2 weeks out of 252, or what would be 252?
Well, first,
So not even 1%
I don't know where you're getting these.
of 1 year,
I don't know where
and
you're,
they don't take it anymore.
I don't know where you're making up these statistics from. You talk about making up statistics. I think every classroom is different. I was in the classroom 15 years. You can't say you don't know these things. You're making
They
up these
gave you
numbers.
biology every year.
In biology or any science, there is lots of inference and stuff about the evolution theory. It's way more. It varies from publisher to publisher. On my video number 4, Lies in the Textbooks, the second half of that video, DVD number 4, I go through and I show a study that was done of 1999, I think, textbooks. What percentage of this book is dedicated to evolution theory? And I think Prentice Hall won with 13.6%. Some only had 2.
Okay.
Merrill Science had 2.4. So you're making up a number and saying it's true. It varies from textbook to textbook. It varies from teacher to teacher. It varies from school to school and classroom to classroom. You don't know what you just said, okay? But I agree.
I do know. I went to high school.
And
We had 2 weeks of evolution
well,
for
then,
all 4 years.
well, then you wasted 2 weeks of your time learning that you came from a rock. We can fix that. Hang in there.
I don't believe I came from a rock. I don't know. But look, for all I know, God did it. I don't know how abiogenesis started. I have no clue. And if there's a book out there, if you can find a textbook that says abiogenesis is how it happened, and there's certain of it, and they've got the theory and all that, I'll be with you on that.
Okay.
What was the last textbook publisher you tried to get changed?
I just got some 2015 textbooks in a few months ago, and I'm going through updating my slides because they put me in prison for 9 years, so I'm a little behind on. But I was
just saying. So you haven't tried since you got out, is what you're saying?
Well, I've searched it on the. Oh yeah, I've searched it on the internet. You can find lots of stuff. They are still teaching. 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down and became a hard, rocky crust.
Yes.
It rained on these rocks for millions of years and created oceans.
Yeah.
In the oceans, the minerals were dissolving into the oceans and created a prebiotic soup.
They explain that this is a hypothesis. They never say this is what happened. They will tell you, we don't know how the origin of life happened. Just like we don't know how the origin of time, space, and matter happened.
Okay, first,
there's no way. Anything that says that it does.
Many textbooks do not say it's a hypothesis. I will show you in a minute if you'd like. But
really, there's 13 different competing ones for abiogenesis.
I know. If it is indeed a hypothesis, should the textbooks share the other hypothesis that maybe God did it? Should that be in the textbooks?
That's supernatural, so no.
It's also supernatural to say non-living soup can come alive with minerals.
No.
That is supernatural.
Not non-living soup. They believe that certain, it matters what your definition of life is at this point, because viroids exist that are just one strand of a gene and they're alive or not alive. We don't even consider viruses alive, yet they can reproduce. It just depends. And I don't know how it happened. And who knows?
Thank you.
God could have just done it and then let the tape play.
Oh, that's correct. That option is not taught in the schools, though. The only option presented to the kids is abiogenesis must have happened because here we are. I mean, as if that somehow is evidence. So it's totally unfair.
I never was taught that.
Well, watch my video.
I was taught evolution. Like when the people started arguing against evolution, the teacher said evolution is a fact.
Well, I'm sure the teacher believes that, and that's fine. They can. It's not a fact. It's something they believe. Let me get back to.
Well, you have to believe something to know it, Kent. You believe that you're wearing a yellow shirt. I mean, you believe that you're 64. That doesn't mean it's not true.
Hey, Steve. I just accidentally shut off my PowerPoint. I want to call up seminar part 1. I was trying to switch back and forth. I want to show Nolan straight from the textbooks. Oh, over here.
Oh
Okay.
my God, I don't care about a book from 1989 that says the Earth started 18 to 20, or the universe started
The green
18
one?
to 20 billion years ago.
Why don't
It's
you?
like you cherry pick the worst books.
Application window. Okay.
Try a new book, get a newer book, and you show me where it says that
That's okay. That's okay.
the Earth, the universe is 13. I mean, not 13.7, but it's 18, 20 billion years old.
I am updating all of my slides. We're going to redo the whole presentation. They are still teaching it in the books. Just Google.
And you also say the Big Bang started spinning faster and faster. What was that about?
That was a quote straight from a textbook, an earth science
No,
textbook.
I read that one.
Yeah.
I paused the video, and guess what? It was from talking about the sun. It says our star, the sun, was born when it was talking about spinning faster and faster.
Do you agree that the galaxies are spinning?
Galaxies?
Are galaxies spinning?
Yes.
Is our solar system spinning?
Our solar system is spinning in relation to something, yes.
Is our planet Earth spinning? You're not a flat earther, right?
Okay.
Praise God, you're
Yes,
not a
right.
flat earther. Okay. So everything
Why
we
would I be a
observe,
flat earther?
all of the moons, possible exception might be asteroids. We don't know for sure. Some appear to be spinning. I don't know that you can prove. They're pretty tiny out
But
there.
what about that?
Where did this spin come from?
Gravity.
Gravity causes a spin?
Absolutely.
Explain that. to me.
Absolutely.
So
Where do you think it's coming from?
if I drop something, it'll start spinning because of gravity. Is that what your position is, Nolan?
No.
Gravity causes a spin. Explain that to me.
If you are in a microgravity or no gravity environment in a near vacuum, it will make you spin.
I'd like you to explain to the people
Have
how.
you ever seen what satellites do? They have to use they have power and stuff to make it where they don't spin like that.
Yeah,
But everything spins because in relation to that. Like we're tidally locked with the moon.
Correct.
So the moon can only show its face to us from one side.
I understand that very well.
That is a gravitational lock.
I agree. We're gravitationally locked to the moon. It spins at the same rate it rotates.
So
29.2
that's
days or
proof
whatever.
that gravity makes it spin.
Okay. Well, let's go on to a different topic. I disagree. But you said that, I said the textbooks teach 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down. Is that what you believe?
I believe that the Earth is 4.5 to 4.6 billion years old. That's what I'll say.
And it came from a cooling hot rock, a hot ball of rock of some kind.
It came from heavy elements and a lot of other lighter elements. That's why mostly lighter elements are at the top and the heavier elements sunk to the bottom. That's why to the core. That's why the core is made out of iron.
Right. I understand.
And
I agree with
iridium.
that. Now, but this 4.6 billion years ago, you have this hot ball of mineral rock elements.
Well, really,
Where did it come
from?
from?
It would have been more magma.
Okay, magma, a hot rock, melted rock. Where did that come from?
Which would be a liquid.
Which would be a liquid. Well, yeah, okay. Anything turns to a liquid at high enough temperature. Where did this hot ball of lava, magma, rock come from?
It came from a concretion disk off of the sun was forming. While the sun's forming, a concretion disk forms, and it and the rocks start to they'll start to form together and get more and more. Some get bigger, some get small.
Yeah, it's
called,
wait a minute. It's called it's accretion, not concretion. Accretion disks. Okay. So these planetesimals begin to form, going around the sun, collecting and folding themselves into a ball shape.
In time, yes.
Okay.
In the sun, and then
is this something?
You know what gravity does? I mean, that's how the sun is formed.
I understand.
The sun, like you say, like you got a chicken and an egg problem with the sun thing, right? Yeah. You say that, but no.
Well, that's another story. But I want to get one point settled here. Is this formation of the planets this story you just told something that you observed or anybody observed, or is this a story they're making up that could be an answer to we're here? I think we'd agree we're here. How did we get here is really the question. And your story says about 4.5 or 4.6 billion years ago, we came from an accretion of particles around the sun that was forming.
What you mean? Because I can't directly
Well, I'm just saying,
observe it.
is this part of observational science, or is this an inference, like John Coffey and the Green Mile?
Is particle physics, since we can't observe any of that?
Don't change the subject. Don't change the subject.
I'm not changing the subject.
Yeah,
I'm asking you.
You're
if
diverging.
you believe that particle physics, because you can't observe it.
There are different levels of evidence in courtroom. Some is, hearsay. Or listen, I'm trying to get an example you'll understand. In a courtroom, there's evidence that's direct evidence, photographic evidence, hearsay evidence, secondhand evidence. I heard him say that he said this. All evidence is not the same and doesn't carry the same weight. The fact is, we are standing on a planet that's 8,000 miles in diameter that's spinning around once a day. That's a fact. Now, how did it get here? Well, there's all kinds of inferences you can get. You can find the ancient Hebrew, 7936 or whatever it is. Depends on your altitude. It's which part of the Earth you're standing on. Okay, because it bulges 20 miles because of the spin.
Yeah.
Okay, I agree. Now, how did it get here? You believe it was in a part of an accretion disk from the sun forming. I would like you to. I'd like you to admit to the listening audience that this is what you believe. This is not what you can prove scientifically. Is this something you can prove scientifically, Nolan, or is this your belief?
Are you saying
the formation of the Earth?
You're asking me to be able to create a star and
I know you can't do it, and I can't either. So you believe that it happened.
I believe that it happened because they've done the models.
So a model therefore makes it true. So if the model works, therefore it must have happened. Is that your position? No, I didn't say
that. They also have looked at other planets from other solar systems and stuff like that. And they've seen them where it's a star is being birthed, where you don't believe in that, but you for some reason believe in supernova, which you obviously didn't check up on how long supernova would take to actually happen, or you wouldn't believe in them either. Because it's more than 6,000 years. But when that's happening, you can see the rocks or whatever's there, and you can see it amongst and there's probably more planets than there are stars in the galaxy.
Okay, let's take this one slow bite at a time here. You're saying your position is that they are seeing stars forming. Is that what you're saying?
I think that we see them. Just like it's like this. If I take a picture of a 5-year-old, I could say that I've got a picture of that 5-year-old at that moment. You can't say that the pictures of the child becoming an adult. It's just like that with this, but they've gotten the pictures of the stars from many different phases before they become a star. So I think that by finding them in all those different phases, it shows inference again. If I can show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5 and 6 are missing, I think you can figure out that that's what you need.
Okay, so if we find a series of stars in different sizes or color bands or gravitational pulls, etc. I agree. There's different kinds of stars out there. I agree. Red giants, white dwarfs, and everything in between. I agree. To you, that is all you need as evidence that these stars are forming from. What are they forming from? This new star they're seeing forming. A star is forming from energy. Hydrogen. So hydrogen gas can form into a star. Is that your position?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It can't. No, wait. It can't just form into a star but in certain circumstances, like we have a very cold vacuum of space. It's your little what is it that you like to use? I forget what it's called. Go ahead and say it.
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
It's something that says that the gap that it's impossible for the the Boyle's gas law or something. I forget
Oh,
what it's
Boyle's
called.
gas law.
Boyle's.
Yeah, Boyle's, B-O-Y-L-S.
Yeah, it doesn't apply.
It doesn't apply?
It doesn't apply at 3 Kelvin in vacuum of space.
So
That's
Boyle's gas law.
that's
I just want to get your position clear. Boyle's gas law does not apply at 3 degrees Kelvin, which is minus 456 something Fahrenheit or whatever you want to use. Okay. And so, therefore,
it's also an ideal gas law anyway. You know, it's only for ideal gases.
I understand.
Right?
I understand. So gases can accrete into a solid, is what you're telling me. Where's
not a solid? Why did I say a solid?
Can a star then, which is I think pretty obviously a pretty hot burning ball of something, that can
you know what it is?
Well, it varies from the color spectrums. Generally, hydrogen or helium. There are
Right.
different color spectrums.
I'll let you in on something here. Maybe you can use it from now.
Okay.
The gas heats up from gravitational collapse. Okay?
All right.
And if it heats up enough, nuclear fusion takes place.
I understand.
Okay? And we know that if we can heat something enough, nuclear fusion can take place. And then then a star, it will actually be a star that will not collapse on itself from gravitational collapse. But anyway, it's made out of plasma. That's a fourth state of matter.
Right.
So it's not made out of a solid. It makes solids. It really doesn't make solids. They're so liquefied by the time it gets to them.
Yeah, what happened?
But yeah, it can make them all the way up to iron.
Okay. Yeah, juice would be better. Okay. So back to the original question, though. Nobody has seen a star do this. This is theoretical.
That what?
That a star can form. Where was this gas coming from? Where's the gravity coming from? Where's the space coming from for it to happen in? Where's the energy coming from?
Okay.
You're
Gravity.
avoiding all of that.
Okay. I don't know where everything came from. All right. But I do know by the models of the Big Bang Theory that hydrogen, a little bit of lithium, and maybe a little bit of beryllium was produced. And hydrogen being what a star is, and it being the easiest element to make, since it only needs one neutron.
To make out of what?
To make out of what do you mean?
Hydrogen is made out of what? Made out of a neutron and a proton, but where did that come from?
Not both. One.
Neutron, proton, one electron, one neutron, one proton.
You can't have a neutron and a proton. It'll weigh more. It only has one.
Where did it come from? Where did the electron come from? The single electron.
It took 360,000 years before it was cold enough in the galaxy that was the whatever galaxy, the nascent galaxy. And when that happened, it's just that they were able to be captured and neutrons will be able to be formed. Stuff can't exist at certain temperatures. Do you understand that?
Way better than you do. Yes, sir.
Yes, you understand way better than me. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, certain things can't exist at certain temperatures. And then later, when the temperature cools down, that's when the hydrogen, lithium, and beryllium were able to be made. Maybe even some deuterium, maybe even some tritium. But the way gravity works, things are attracted to each other.
Why?
And since do what?
Why?
Like things that have.
Why are things? Where did gravity come from?
Where did it? It's one of the 4 fundamental forces.
Well, where did it come from? Who made
that's
gravity?
Who made the electromagnetic spectrum?
Very good. I think I know him very well. Talked to him this morning.
Who made it?
The Lord. I'd like to introduce you to him.
Okay, wait. The Lord made it? Okay, wait. That you gave an answer. Okay, I've got that. That gives a lot more questions. Ready?
I don't think we're done
who
with your
is
questions
this-
yet.
No, who is the? I stopped with those questions because you told me to.
I did.
So we were just going back and forth.
I said, where did gravity come from? Where did the particles come from? Where did the energy come from? You said it cooled down. Where did the heat come from to cool from? Cooling indicates heating down to cooling. Where did the original heat come from?
You know where the heat. Did you teach high school science for 15 years?
I taught for 15 years, yes, sir.
Okay, then where did the heat come from? Do I have to tell you?
I'm asking you where you believe it came from. I'm trying to demonstrate to the listening audience that you have a religion, not a science. You believe these things. You don't know them. You can't prove this scientifically. This is part of your religion. And I think they're seeing it very clearly, Nolan. Thank you. Go ahead.
They can, with the Big Bang Theory, which was actually a bad name given to it by forgot his name right now, Fred Hoyle,
Belgian guy, whatever.
Named it that because he hated it. But it wasn't accepted at first. Nobody wanted it because it wasn't nice and clean like this other theory. Wasn't everything expanding and the world was just going forever and it wouldn't be a problem. This one has a problem where not only is it expanding, it's accelerating. Do you agree that the universe is accelerating?
I don't think we know that for sure. It appears to be.
Are you serious?
We get a red shift from quite a few stars. It appears to be they're going away from us. Now, if they are accelerating, the obvious question is, where's this extra energy coming from? Because F equals ma, and where's the mass is staying the same, and so if the acceleration is increasing, where's this force coming from? That's simple physics 101. Will you tell me?
It's called dark energy and dark matter. We don't know what those are. Those are placeholder names.
It's one more. Call it dark science. Nobody sees any of that. Okay.
Just because it's 14 hours. It would be like arguing with somebody in the 15th century, saying, "Who knows what? The germ theory of disease. There's no way bacteria makes you sick, or something like that." Or arguing about plate tectonics. That's what this sounds like. It's just because you can't see.
Okay, let's go back to the original question. I'm asking you. You said 4.6 billion years ago, or 4.5, whatever number you want to use, the Earth formed.
Sure.
From what? Where did the matter come from? Where did the energy come from?
It came from an exploding star.
And where did that star come from?
We can play the game of cat and mouse here.
Well, that's what they do. See,
okay.
The textbooks teach this stuff. They teach it to all the kids like it's fact, and it's a religion.
Okay. Why is it a religion?
It's something you believe in. You believe in it, and you believe in it very strongly.
I don't believe in it. I accept it as the best we get. You said the Lord did it.
I'm here to give you the more logical explanation.
Is a more logical.
Absolutely. There had to be somebody outside of time, space, matter.
It's more logical that there's an omnipresent, omniscient, omnibenevolent for God, omnipotent God that just decided to just make humans. Do you know what is an ant to you, Dr. Hovind?
Oh, there's probably 6,000 different species of ants. We got them all over. Fire ants are to me. They're a
nuisance. What are they to you? Would you just step on one without thinking twice?
Oh, if it's in my house or interfering with my safety, sure, absolutely, I'd step on it. Yeah.
So, what would we be to an omniscient, omnipotent God?
Oh, much less than an ant. Why he loves
then
this? Why he loves this is amazing to me.
Can he lie?
Can God lie?
Yes.
He reveals himself to us through a book, and he says he cannot lie.
So he can't.
That's what the book says. So, God cannot lie.
Which means I can do something God can't.
Good point. Excellent point. I guess it goes back to a different moral argument, way off track from what we're talking about creation, evolution.
But what I wanted to say about him
I'm not asking for all the public schools to teach about my God at taxpayer expense. You're asking everybody to teach your stupid religion of evolution at taxpayer expense.
I've heard you
burden of proof's on you.
I've heard you say that people can teach creation science in class. No problem.
They often get fired, and they shouldn't.
Not a big deal. And you said that they should be able to do it?
Legally, they can, but they often get fired if they do it.
Okay, but you said that they legally can. And that you wanted them
from
to.
system UI server. Low battery.
But anyways,
Alert from
I asked you
low
this
battery.
question the other week, and it's about day 3. Why didn't the plants and everything die on day 3 before the sun?
Well, I think you'd find any botanist of any brain caliber at all would tell you plants can live one day with no photosynthesis going on, no sun, absolutely fine. Not to live for millions of years.
Without heat.
Why are you assuming there's no heat?
Why would there be heat? It's the sun that gives us our heat.
That's correct. In Genesis 1:1, there was light before there was sun. God himself is light, and I would assume provides
God himself is light and heat?
Apparently. It's not a problem for me. But again, Nolan, you're missing the point.
That's your answer.
I'm not asking for my belief to be taught at taxpayer expense.
But what I'm saying is, if you're going to explain that God was heat and light before, you're kind of helping out the day age people, because you say, because your reasoning for their reason there won't work is because there's no sun till day 4. Therefore, the plants would die because, if it's millions of years later, the sun would die, and they'd die because they would get cold and they wouldn't have any photosynthesis. But now, if you're saying Jesus or God can give these people that, then their theory works just as well as yours now.
The fact that the Bible doesn't specifically mention heat, it does mention light in the first couple verses. The fact that it doesn't mention it doesn't mean it's a problem either way for the creationists. The plants do need a certain amount of heat. I understand that. Most can't survive, sub-freezing temperatures for long periods of time. But if God can provide the light, he can provide the heat. But I'm not asking for my theory to be taught. You are demanding that everybody teach your religion at taxpayer expense.
I'm asking, okay, I have a question then. Wait a second. If, let's say, they stopped teaching it, would you, okay, for instance, let's say Hitler was a bad person, right? Terrible person.
I believe so, yeah.
Should we learn about him in history?
We should learn that he was terrible and horrible, not what a great idea he had of killing all the people you don't agree with.
Okay.
I think we should learn what a dumb idea evolution is. Kids ought to be taught. Here's one theory. Back 100 years ago, somebody made up an idea that we all came from a rock. I think that's dumb. Ha ha.
No. The theory doesn't say that.
It does too. I was trying to get you to admit.
No, evolution only has to deal with life once it exists.
So how did life get started?
They don't know. I don't know. It could have been God.
Well,
you tell me.
I'll be glad
how
to.
Many different kinds
God created it.
Of animals he had to put on the ark. When he says kinds of ravens in Leviticus. Because if there's different kinds of ravens, that means that kind is more like a species.
It could be. I don't know where the boundary for kind is. And there may be different varieties of ravens that are incapable of reproducing. I don't know.
I'm happy to see you're not saying that you don't know where the species boundary is anymore, because you
do you know where the species do you know where the species boundary is?
Okay. I'll explain it like this. All right, I told you this the other day, that dogs and wolves are the same species. That's why they're interfertile, but they have it's a different subspecies, Canis lupus familiaris or domesticus. Now, when speciation is in the middle of it happening, it's more like, let's say, since it's such it takes so long, and it could be like, I wouldn't know how to explain exactly when the speciation happened, exact one, but let's say the difference between violet and indigo as colors, okay? They're nanometers apart, 1 nanometer. Now, what if I got 1 picometer, okay, and said, and I went to 450 nanometers, and then I went to plus 1 picometer, do you think you could tell that it was violet?
No, no.
Or would you say it was indigo?
I think the color, man has put an arbitrary division and divided up into 7, but in reality, the color band is one continuous spectrum of, and you can go beyond picometers if you'd like. It's amazing the way the color band is designed and the way that our eye can perceive it. You'd almost think the eye was designed, if you didn't know any better, to see this color, to see these amazing colors.
Do you know how much stuff we can't see?
Oh, yeah.
We can't see most anything.
You can't see the obvious. There was a designer.
What's the obvious?
God designed the world.
How?
I don't know. I'm going to ask you one day, and I'll try to relay the information to you wherever you are at that time.
Why do you think that? Because somebody, when you were old, you told this story, and you said that you were, like you said, I'm going to die one day. And it sounded like you were scared of dying. And so you went and gave your heart to Christ.
There are multiple reasons to give your heart to Christ. It's the most logical thing to do, to study and love your Creator. You're going to die one day too, Nolan. In your worldview, what's going to happen?
And I gave my heart to Christ at 10.
I don't believe that, but it's up to you. I mean, I'm not your judge.
You don't believe that?
I
absolutely did.
I can just look at the fruit and see that you're a bitter, angry young man right now, and you don't believe God's word. I don't think you believe the creation story. I think you've fallen for this dumb evolution religion, and I feel sorry for you, and I'd like to help.
I feel sorry for the people that watch your channel, because you are beyond helping, because you make money off this. Something that you've said about other people before. You've said more than once, well, that person makes money off of that, so that you can't trust them. Well, you're making money off this, so why should I trust you on?
Well, I have had a policy for nearly 30 years. People can buy my videos, watch them, and return them and get their money back. Show me any evolutionist or atheist. Can I buy Richard Dawkins' book, read it, and then return it and get my money back?
I don't know.
Show me any evolutionist that'll do that. I've been doing that consistently since day one.
But
nobody's forced to give anything to me. People love my ministry, and they donate.
You told me, you actually told everybody that policy has gotten you more money.
Oh, God has blessed greatly. We're broke again, but that's his problem. Now, I want to go back.
If it's gotten you more money, then it sounds like it was. And here's the thing. As a Christian ministry, you didn't want to go around filing lawsuits of people doing that to your tapes. So you made the right decision and just said, let them copy them, because they were going to do it anyways. I mean, do you really think that people aren't going to copy the new hot DVD when it comes, or Blu-ray when it comes out?
No problem. I don't mind if they do, as long as they don't resell it. It's my intellectual property. Anybody can copy it. One guy in Texas made 41,000 copies of my videos. Just please do.
Did he ever donate anything?
I don't know. No, he makes copies and sends them out. He's a missionary using my stuff. But see,
that's great.
If I did that with Richard Dawkins' book, if I made copies of his book and sold it, I think he would get upset. If you write a book,
but wait a second, that's not the same thing.
Yeah,
you said sold it. If that guy was selling those tapes, you would have been mad.
I've told everybody, don't sell them and don't change them. Don't edit
exactly.
them. Sure.
So if you made copies of Richard Dawkins and you were giving them out.
Okay, if I made copies and gave them out, would he get mad at me?
I believe that if you wrote him first and asked him and you said what your reasoning for it was, I bet you could get some type of latitude to do that.
Ability to copy. Okay, I may do that. He won't debate me. I know that. You said a couple things.
I know he won't. You know why he won't?
I do know why he won't.
You know, I'll tell you why. He said, because he said, like, for instance, let's say there's a flat earther and he wants to debate, an earth scientist or a reproductive scientist and a guy who's an advocate of the stork theory. He's like, at some point, you just tell these people no. It's like, no, I mean, your side lost, and yet you won't ever admit losing. You'll just keep. I like that. I want you to give me your young Earth proofs, so I can not just blow them out the water for you.
Well, we've already gone 2 hours here. I think we should do this again another day. I mean, I can go all day if you like.
Come on.
But you want to keep going?
Yes.
Okay.
And then we can split it up into 2 later. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, no, I've got other irons.
Okay.
I scheduled 2 hours. I'll take more. I can tell people to call back.
Yeah, well, you said that other guy like didn't, like, you were scheduled to 3. So
yeah, I've got a family waiting for me back at the camp that wants to tour the place they came to visit from.
Okay.
But that's okay.
But
Nolan,
let's start.
I want to win you. I want to win you to the Lord is what I want to do. I don't
Yes,
think you know
I
him.
believe you.
Okay. Your worldview says man is nothing but an advanced animal. If I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Nothing but?
What are we? What is man?
What is man?
Who are you, Nolan?
It depends. It depends. Man as a being is just an organism, but we have the ability to create symphonies and to save people from burning buildings and do so much right in the world. You know, clean water for people and just save people from, you know, just pits or from wells, and we also have the ability to do horrible things.
Why, if man is just an animal, is there an afterlife, Nolan? Is there a heaven or hell? Is there any afterlife?
I hope so.
Does man have something other than just a body, like a spirit or a soul of some kind? Is there more to man than just
we
a
have
body?
we have a mind. We are self-aware.
And does that cease?
The other animals are not self-aware.
So is man
You may
different?
think,
Is man different than the animals?
what do you mean?
Well, if we're self-aware and they're not self-aware, we are different somehow. We have something
Yes.
they don't have.
Yes, but
Where did that evolve?
also,
How did that evolve out of the animals? At what point
What?
did man become self-aware and get this new whatever it is in us that helps us to be self-aware? We'll call it a spirit.
well,
Where did that come? How did that evolve?
it wouldn't have mattered if the self-aware thing is good, but do you know what the #1 greatest invention is?
Water.
I would say that's a good one.
Okay.
But it's the written language.
I don't know if it's an invention.
So we could learn from others and in time we can have enough information to stand on the shoulders of giants. And that's how we've learned so much in the last few hundred years, where before it wouldn't have happened. Just like we have more people alive right now than ever. And since there's more people, you have that many more chances for something, great to happen and to learn. But anyway, I wanted to ask you this question about the moon and the Earth. You said it's 1.2 billion years. 1.2 billion.
I'd have to call up I give the reference right on screen.
Okay. Have you done the math?
Steve. I just simply, is it the green arrow? The power to get my PowerPoint back?
Yeah, that's fine. Look it up just so to make sure it's right.
Yeah, on my video #1, open part 1, right there. Yep. No, up above that. Yeah, right there. Okay. On my video #1, I give the reference, but I think I need to point out a much bigger picture, Nolan. I don't think you're seeing. I am not asking my theory to be taught.
Okay.
Okay.
But that's not what I'm talking about right now.
All right. Let's see. Next.
Right. So what is the number
Here's
for the
moon.
moon to touch the Earth?
Okay. The moon is going around the Earth. It is receding. Here is from curious.astro.Cornell University, where they say the moon's orbit, its circular path around the Earth, is indeed getting larger at the rate of 3.8 centimeters per year, about 1.5.
Okay.
This is from Cornell
I'm
University.
going to do those numbers. Okay.
That's from Cornell
3.8
University.
centimeters, right?
Uh-huh.
Right. Times, let's say, what would that be? Let's put it in inches. 3.8 centimeters is 1.5 inches,
Okay.
right?
Yep. Right.
Okay, 1.5 inches.
250,000 miles average.
Okay, so 1.5 inches times 8 would make 1 foot.
Times 12.
Right?
No, there's 12 inches in a foot in Alabama.
But, no, but 1.5 times 8 would.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so that would be 8 years. That would be 1 foot.
You're assuming
Times-
a linear progression. Anybody that studied
Times-
this says it's logarithmic.
Times 5,280. Okay?
In feet,
That's-
feet per mile, correct?
That would be 42,000 feet. I mean, 42,000 feet.
Okay.
Okay? I mean, 42,000 years that we're at a mile.
Okay.
And now you need 240,000 miles or 250. Let's just do 240,000.
Yeah, it's close enough.
That is equal to 10 billion years.
Well, you're
Off by a whole order of magnitude.
missing two major points. One is you don't have to get all the way to touch the Earth. Way before that time, you'd have a problem, a royal problem.
When?
I don't know. But secondly, you're missing the point that it would not be a linear progression. It would be logarithmic. It'd be follow the
What?
inverse. It's called the inverse square law.
No, it gets, but the Earth would hold it closer the closer it was to Earth, even though the tides and everything would be stronger.
Okay, go to
But
the.
what I'm saying,
Wait a minute. You'd like
is
published
that-
journals. Here's the Astronomical Journal. The Astronomical Journal, Volume 108, Number 5, November 1994. On page 1954, they said, and I quote, "The evolution of the lunar semi-major axis presents a well-known timescale problem. The lunar orbit collapses only a little over 1 billion years ago."
and,
So
when,
here's the
and when was this written?
Astronomical Journal, 1994. They're saying it's called The Evolution of the Earth-Moon System, is the article. The orbit would collapse 1 billion years ago because just like getting two magnets closer together, the force of attraction increases. It's inverse square law, simple physics. So here's again from Cornell University, curious.astro.cornell.edu. This was July 2015. The moon's orbit is increasing 1.5 inches a year. Now, you're missing the point though, Nolan. I'm not asking for my theory to be taught. I think you'll find scientists would agree that the orbit is indeed enlarging. That means it used to be closer and it puts some kind of time limit. You don't want any time
10
limit.
billion years, like I showed you.
No, you didn't show me. You came to the math of 10 billion years because you don't understand inverse square laws about logarithmic progression rather than linear progression.
Okay, even it wouldn't even get a halfway there. Okay, and another thing, they don't think the moon, like it's okay. The moon, the way the moon was formed, this is what they're going with. A planet the size of Mars hit Earth,
Just move it.
and then what came out of it? The ejecta formed the moon.
That's the
So
ejection
that's why
hypothesis.
it's the same.
That's called
why
the
they're saying
ejection.
that.
There are 4 different hypotheses about the moon formation. That's called the ejection hypothesis, proven wrong a long time ago. If you
That
want,
one was not.
oh yeah, if you want to believe that, you're way behind on your science, but that's okay. It's not possible to
yeah,
eject something out of the Earth and create a almost perfectly spherical object like the moon.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's what gravity does.
That's okay. Well, you can believe that if you'd like, but it's not observable science, and I resent that being taught to the kids at my expense. You need to go start a private school and teach it to your kids, and you pay for it.
How about this one that you love so much?
Sounds like you're obsessed with my seminar, Nolan. I'm a really nice guy.
I know it's because some of this stuff is wrong.
I showed you right from the published journals that you're so proud of that I'm not wrong. You're wrong. It's 1 billion years ago.
Okay, how about this one? Your whole thing about it's 1/1000th of a second is how much we lose every day, right? The Earth's slowing down.
Okay, we are back to my seminar part 1, where I talk
It's
about.
a millisecond every day.
Oh, hang on. Home. Let me get to that one. The Earth's spin. Let's see. The spin of the Earth. Here we go. Okay, I'm in my PowerPoint now, part 1. Here's again from Cornell University, July 2015. However, the change in the Earth's rotational period, that would be the spin, was first measured using eclipses of all things. Astronomers who studied the timing of eclipses over many centuries found that the moon seemed to be accelerating in its orbit. But what was actually happening was the Earth's rotation was slowing down. The effect was first noticed by Edmund Halley in 1695 and first measured by Richard Dunthorne in 1748. The Earth is slowing down in its spin. Here's an article from the Pensacola News Journal about we have to add a second to the clock because regular clocks are using days as a measure, which are growing longer. Here's from Astronomy Magazine. Earth's rotation is slowing down. To compensate, we have to have a leap second. June is going to be 1 second longer. People can look this up. They have leap seconds about every year to year and a half. This is happening continually. Earth is in line for a time tune-up, is the article from the International Earth Rotation Service. Another one. Astronomy Magazine, again. I think a leap second is a 1 second adjustment occasionally applied to
a lot of them.
Okay. This is from, let's see, International Earth Rotation and Reference System Services, 2016.
You do know a leap second is added to only the year, not to every day, right?
Yeah, I understand. Right. Added to the year. I understand.
Okay.
But here, 27 leap seconds. 27 leap seconds have been inserted. The most recent is December 31st, 2016. Here's from International Earth Rotation Service. So my point is very simple. The Earth is spinning. It is slowing down.
Okay. And it does it over 1.4, it does it 1.4 milliseconds every century. That's the number. Look it up. You can look it up. It's not my article. It's everywhere.
Is the purpose of this line of questioning to say that the Earth could be billions of years old and Earth's spin would not affect that? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Okay, you may be correct.
Absolutely.
You may be correct. I am simply pointing out, A, it is spinning. B, it is slowing down. That means it had to be going faster. At some point back in time, you're going to create multiple problems, not only with gravity spinning it into a disk, more bulge at the equator, hence more earthquakes and volcanoes and everything else, and shorter daylight time for photoperiodism for plants. It's not a problem.
Really?
I just simply say it's not a problem for creation.
When did plants evolve?
They didn't. They were created.
Okay, well, in their theory, when did plants evolve?
Oh, I don't know.
Any idea?
That number changes. That number changes from textbook to textbook. I've got a couple hundred miles.
Textbook to textbook, but not. But anyway, if the planet was spinning crazy 4.6 billion years ago, and plants don't evolve till 400 million years ago, the Earth was actually like 22.8 or something like that, or 22.4
hours per day.
Mm-hmm. 20 hours per day.
So 400 million years ago is 22.4 hours per day. Are there plants that are dependent on more sunlight than that? The plants are very sensitive to what's called photoperiodism. You can Google that. And certain plants, they shut down if there's not enough daylight hours. And that's why they have fall seasons in some latitudes. But we're off track here. Again, your point. Oh, I just lost it. I didn't touch nothing here.
That was him.
Well, I'm still recording here for YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll call back.
He'll call back. We somehow lost him. We'll work on that.
That was on his end.
Oh, Nolan, you're still there. Good. Okay, I thought maybe you got angry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. I thought you got angry and quit.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You can't hear me, apparently.
Yeah.
I can hear you fine. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Oh, hang on. We lost it.
He's got a call.
We have to call both. Okay. Now, see, according to evolution, complicated things like internet all should happen automatically. What is the problem here, Steve? We're not waiting, Billy.
Yeah, we got it. Tell him to take his stuff off a hold.
Hold it. Take your stuff off hold on Skype. We can't see you. I can hear you on the phone, but I can't.
Yeah.
Call him on Skype. Okay, we're calling right now.
Hello.
Hello. Now I hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
What I was saying was that
it was.
that complicated like bones and anything like you always do. You'll go a car, a Honda Civic and a Honda Prelude. They probably use millions of the same things, but they weren't made from a skateboard. Well, they don't reproduce.
Oh, I've heard that argument. I know.
There's no way for them to have common ancestry. Can we agree upon that? So why do you continue to use that?
Do stars reproduce?
Do stars?
Do planets reproduce? Do rocks reproduce?
No.
Thank you.
No, rocks don't reproduce. What do you mean?
Did rocks produce life one time long ago and far away?
No, I don't think so.
Where did life come from?
I don't know.
Okay,
I hope God did it.
he did.
It's just one of those things that, look, not knowing, okay, it's not like a bad thing to say I don't know.
Oh, I say it all.
Just because.
I say it all the time, and I wish you would say that about this dumb evolution religion you follow.
All right, let's say a part of it. Let's see what you say. Okay, Microraptor, Velociraptor, and Archaeopteryx. Okay.
Okay.
Especially Microraptor and Velociraptor both have feathers. They are dinosaurs. Now, explain that with just created.
Okay.
Was a reptile created with feathers?
It's real simple, Nolan. Listen carefully. Some bones were found in the dirt.
Yeah.
They have little lines coming off that somebody is interpreting as feathers, or they may actually have feathers on them. Okay.
They found many.
End of evidence. Bones are found in the dirt with feathers. Okay. That does not prove it's changing to anything else. It proves it died. End of story.
Yeah.
End of story. It died. Did it have? Can you prove?
Okay, I would hate for you to be on a forensic, a team or something, because no cases would get solved. Well, I mean, the knife went to his throat just proved he died. We can't figure anything else out here. Let's just walk away.
Okay, so you found.
No, there's more to be found.
Let's say they found hundreds of Archaeopteryx, as an example, hundreds of them. They died. Can you prove any of those fossils had any children that lived?
Absolutely. Not those fossils, but we can prove that they were a population of an animal.
Can you prove
animals? Here's the thing. Okay, animals do not speciate by like one or two at a time. They speciate as a population. We've proven this with ring species and other species. Like, for instance, do you really think that a horse kind gave birth to 2 zebra kinds?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, that's impossible.
I agree.
Because you can only give birth to your same species. But in time, yes, a zebra could have been made. And then that's how that works.
No, it's not how it works. That's how you believe it works. That's your religion. You believe it works.
Those animals, those 5 Archaeopteryx, they are representatives of a population of birds that had reptilian features. That is kind of like I would call it like a missing link or intermediate. How is that not an intermediate?
It died, Nolan. You don't know it had any children. You don't know if it's intermediate between anything.
Can you tell me what would count as an intermediate then?
You'd have to see it happen to be real science. To be real science, somebody should be able to make something in the laboratory, produce something other than its kind. Science, see, you don't understand what science is. It's things we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Believing that a Archaeopteryx is evidence for something is not science. It's a religion.
So in other words, there's no way for evolution to be proven, or not proven, but to be a viable theory in your mind.
Depends what you mean by the word.
Because it has to be done in the laboratory, and they have to have a species born.
It depends what you mean by the word.
That's an intermediate.
It depends what you mean by the word evolution.
Is that what you're saying? It's essentially impossible to prove, or
it's a religion. You believe in it. You believe in it very strongly, and a lot of people believe in it very strongly. But that doesn't make it.
Because I have a question. Do you think they can use DNA to say who your grandparents were?
Yes, sir. I think that's that's very close to a science.
How about your great grandparents?
Probably get closer. Yeah.
How about your great 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 grandparents?
I think it probably gets fuzzier the further you go back in time because there's so much.
It will be with other people, but if the DNA is there, they can find out if it's with you too. You know, like mitochondrial E, where they found the genetic makeup to prove that.
Yeah, there was a study of a bunch of women around the world to say, do they have a common gene code? Yeah.
Human woman to give birth to the people that are on the planet.
I even know her husband's name.
What I'm saying is this: if something only varies between 99.9, that's what we are. All humans. You said one of your things that humans vary 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7%. We vary by 0.1%.
What varies by what? Height, weight, skin color? What varies?
The DNA, and the DNA of a bonobo and a chimpanzee varies with us by 98.3, 98.4. So going through this thing of relation. And you can tell because the things that have closer DNA to the other thing, they look similar, and they have things in common. And besides, why did God copy and paste chimpanzee DNA before He made humans? Because that's what He must have done. Because chimpanzees were first, and most of their DNA is in ours.
How do you know chimpanzees were first?
Do I know? How do I know? Because he made the animals on day 6. Then He made man.
Yeah, a couple of minutes later, it doesn't mean. What do you mean? There's no chance of any genetic.
Do what?
A few minutes later, there's no chance of any inheritance there.
But okay, what I'm saying is this. All right, if you do know about chromosome number 2 and how it's fused, right?
Yes, sir.
How do you think that happened?
When I boot up my computer, quite frequently it will say, "Oh, we've got an update. We have to fix this," and so they have to update different programs. The different companies that produce computer programs are constantly trying to tweak it, improve it, update it, add new features, or correct mistakes that were made. I think that the DNA code of just chromosome number 2, just that one chromosome, contains more information than all the computer programs ever written by man combined. All the programs ever written in the history of humanity. Take, Microsoft PowerPoint, all none of that totals what is just the information in just chromosome number 2. So why
don't have the ability for common ancestry?
Well, but you think this
since they can't be common ancestors, it's irrelevant. It's a different type of information.
Well, if chromosome 2 in chimpanzees and chromosome 2 in humans looks very similar under the microscope,
why would ours be a fusion of 2 of theirs?
We don't know that it is a fusion of 2 of theirs. I have my own chromosomes. I didn't get them from the chimpanzees. I got them from my parents.
We have found where the site is exactly where the base pairs are. They can tell you exactly where the base site is at, where the other chromosome with the telomere. So it has it has 2 dead telomeres, 1 dead centromere there. It should only have 2 telomeres and 1 centromere, but instead it has 4 telomeres and 2 centromeres. And all that information is from chromosome 13, I believe, of the chimpanzee. So it didn't come from a chimpanzee; it came from a common ancestor of it. But it's just, but why would that be like that?
Think what you are saying here.
Talk a little louder. I can barely hear.
Okay, we have the most complicated code in the universe, right in every cell of our body. More complicated than all the computer programs running this Microsoft and Skype and internet, all this.
I only see life make other life. I don't see God making life. I see life making life.
Correct.
So if you want to say,
God gave each plant and animal the ability to reproduce. I think it's wonderful. And it's amazing.
Why are you adding God to an equation? Have you ever heard of Occam's razor?
I have.
You don't think adding God is just adding something to it that's going to make more questions? Where did God come from?
No,
where does he abide? What's his motives? Why did he do this?
You are adding time as the solution to everything. Given enough time, the things we don't see happening now might happen if we give it enough time. We never see dogs produce non-dogs. Never.
No.
But you think if we had enough time, it would happen, don't you?
I believe what?
If we had enough time, going forward, they might produce something different than a dog. And going backwards, they obviously came from something different than a dog. But all of this takes place in an imaginary feature, like time.
Really?
You don't see it happen. No, I don't see it happen. No farmer ever sees it happen.
Okay. I have a question though. You believe that cats have a common ancestor with other cats?
I don't know. It's interesting. There's lions, tigers, puma, jaguar.
How about mice?
With mice?
Mice.
I think cats regularly ingest mice chromosomes as they eat them.
Or rabbits and hares. How about them?
That's a good one. I don't know. I'll see exactly where the border is between the kinds. I think is a subject of research that needs a lot of work.
Can you talk some? I can barely hear you.
Okay. I think the border between the different kinds.
Borderline?
What's the matter, Steve?
Is that what you said?
Yeah, the borderline between the different kinds is a little fuzzy in a few places. But that I'm not asking for mine to be taught at taxpayer expense. The fact that I can't answer the question is irrelevant. You're demanding we all pay for your religion to be taught. The burden of proof's on you.
It's not a religion.
It is.
I'm asking for it to be taught in an unbiased point of view.
Oh, like it is.
This is the theory we have. You would be doing people a disservice. Is it or is it not a theory in science right now?
Is what a theory in science?
Okay, is evolution. Is it?
Oh, yeah, it's one of the theories taught in science.
Okay, so since it's a theory in science, I think a teacher would be doing a disservice not to teach it. Even if they don't believe in it, they should say, hey, this is what it says. If you don't believe in it, good, just answer the questions right and move on. But it seems like you expect an evolution, a huge jump into a different kind. That can't happen.
It can't happen. You think it did happen?
It can't.
Do you believe giraffes? Do you believe giraffes and are giraffes and bananas? Are giraffes and bananas related? If we go way back in time, go back as far as you want. Are giraffes and bananas related?
Their DNA is, I think, 25% similar.
Do you believe they're related?
There is a chance that they are. Not them like related, like you know, like hey cousins. But I'm talking distantly and on billions of years different, or not billions, but hundreds of millions of years difference.
Nolan, we got to quit here now. I got other projects. This is wonderful. Please, let's schedule this again. I'm home the first couple of days of next week. I leave Thursday. Contact Rhonda or Steve here and set up a time to let's go round two.
All right.
As soon as you
like. There's a lot more I wanted to ask.
Oh, please do. Yep. First, calm down. It's going to be fine, okay?
All right.
I don't bite. I'm a nice guy. And it may
take... Do you need to give a closing, or can we have a closing?
Yeah, you can have a closing, and then or you can go first, or I'll go first. Either way, whichever you'd like.
Good.
What do you
love to have a closing?
Go ahead. You go first.
Do you want to go first?
No.
I got to get to mine.
No, I got to make a few notes here. So you go ahead and go for it. Get to your closing. And I'm not quite ready yet. And then we'll get ready for round two whenever you'd like.
All right. I want to say this in closing. Hey, Kent Hovind believes in any of the science that agrees with his interpretation of the Bible. You see, he came to the Bible and became really big into it. And then he even believed in millions of years for a little while. And then he decided that they didn't work together. And then he got into scientific creation, which has actually been, I think a court case said that it can't be called that or whatever. But anyways, and so he got big into this, and then he made ministry out of it, and, you know, good for him. And I just like to say that a lot of the stuff that he teaches is wrong. And not only is it wrong, it's harmful to other people. Like those communist rules for revolution that aren't even real, or telling people that like universe means a single spoken sentence, uni and verse, because there's verse and prose. Verse means spoken and prose means written. No, that's not true. Verse is also written. It's not a spoken thing. It's not even close. Universe means one turn. I think it's French. And by the way, the Big Bang Theory, nothing is spinning. Like in this thing, he says everything is spinning the same way. And if everything isn't spinning the same way, then that proves the Big Bang Theory is not true. When he was talking to that guy on the plane in Berkeley, no, that's not true. Everything wouldn't have been spinning the same direction, because that happened millions and millions of years afterward. If you look up the Big Bang Theory and understand it, also, he said only chlorophyll can use the sun's energy at one point. That's also crazy, because cyanobacteria uses it, plankton use it. 75% of all oxygen that we breathe comes from the ocean, and it doesn't come from ocean plants. And he also said on a thing with a guy named Michael Rood that they were pterodactyls flying over Papua New Guinea, and they had video of it. I would love to see that video. I mean, come on, where are they holding them from? This is millions and millions of dollars worth. And a pterodactyl, he said, was found after they blew open a rock, a big rock to make a road or something with dynamite. 9-inch wingspan. This is in 102 class 7. Okay, TSC 102, the college class 7. And he says pterodactyl got out, stretched its wings 10 foot 9 inches. I mean, that's pretty, on the money numbers. And then it squawked. I guess it's a bird now. And then died. Well, darn. And then, I mean, they did have cameras then, but nobody took one. And he also said that toads are found in rocks and coal. And he blamed the flood on this stuff. Toads can't live in any rocks or coal that is sealed for any amount of time, because they don't hibernate. Even if they did, they would die in a few years. But it's just another thing one more thing I wanted to get out, and that's that it seems like Kent has he loves Christianity, he loves God and all that stuff, but he won't even mention it when he mentions his diploma. Well, his first one. He's always said, I got a PhD in education, not Christian education, which is what it is in. That is a totally different one with totally different coursework. You wouldn't do anything that has to do with education with a whatever Christian education degree. But it sounds good to make it like, hey, I teach science, I got a PhD in education, so it sounded good at the time. And it's not a real lie, it's just, I would say, dishonest. And also the Hunza tribe that he said lived to be 160 and to 90, yeah, they're living to age 53, and they're unhealthy and have a lot of diseases and stuff. But anyway, I would be delighted to do this again, sir. It's been a delight. I have much more to talk about, and you can have the floor.
Well, thank you, sir. You only took about 5 minutes there, but I'd be thrilled to come back. Let's do it again early next week, if possible, or whenever you'd like. Can you still hear me? You can't hear me?
No.
They're still doing.
What happened here? Yeah, call him back.
Sorry.
You don't want. Hang on. He shut you off accidentally, Nolan. He's calling here. I want him to hear that. There it comes. According to evolution. Wait, folks, till we get him back on the phone. This is only fair.
Hello?
Hello. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. Can you hear me now, Nolan?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir. You only took 5 minutes. I'll do the same and we'll quit. Let's do this again next week, round 2. As soon as you can. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I think I'm here. You can check with Rhonda. She knows what other stuff she has scheduled for me. Okay.
Round 2.
Rhonda, the secretary. Just secretary at drdino.com.
And you said next week?
If you'd like, sure. Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
I like this. I
Me
got
too.
a lot
I
more
love it. My closing arguments here. You said a lot of stuff he teaches is wrong and harmful. First, I disagree. I don't know of anything I teach that's wrong or harmful. I think that applies to the evolutionists who are teaching lots of things that are wrong and harmful. This was the very philosophy that gave behind Adolf Hitler. It's my turn to give.
Can I ask you a quick question?
No, sir. My turn to give a closing, and we'll do it next time, Monday. Okay.
Okay.
As far as pterodactyls found in New Guinea, I gave the evidence. I gave the references, sites, and stuff like that. I try to reference everything right on screen. You can get all my PowerPoint slides, all 7,000 of them for $100, and then on a thumb drive, which includes all my debates and all my seminars. It's called 855 Big Dino. Now, in closing, Nolan, you are incredibly designed by a creator who fortunately loves you and loves me and wrote a book to tell us where we came from and where we're going. You're going to die one day, and I'm going to die. We're going to stand before that creator, whether you believe in him or not. We're going to be judged. I believe God created a perfect world, and man introduced sin and death into that world, just like it says in the Bible. I'm not asking for my religion to be taught in school systems. I do believe it, but that's where it stops. I cannot prove it. I am funding my ministry at totally volunteer donations and people buying my videotapes, whereas the evolutionists are funding their religion at the point of a gun. Everybody is forced to pay or you lose your house. Property taxes go to the public school system. I'm in favor of education. I love teaching, taught for years and enjoyed it. I do have a degree in Christian education. You are correct. But I think if somebody goes through years of schooling at Harvard or Princeton or Yale and comes out believing that the universe started from nothing in a big bang and that they came from a rock 4.6 billion years ago, I'm not impressed with their degree either. But I don't argue about my degree meaning anything. I have 4 doctor's degrees, 1 honorary, 3 that I've earned. If you don't like them, then call me Kent, as you have this whole time, which is fine. Call me Bubba. Call me Hey You. Forget the degree. That's a rabbit trail. Don't worry about it. But so I don't ridicule other people's degree because I disagree with what they believe. Someone works really hard. What do we got a squeak in here somewhere?
Coming from his end.
Coming from your end, I think we got a squeak. Okay. Anyway. The Bible teaches very clearly that God made the world and God's going to judge it again one day, and you need to get ready for that. If you're not sure you're going to heaven, we have on our website, drdino.com, what the Bible teaches of how to be forgiven and go to heaven. God created the world. He owns it. He makes the rules, and we are all guilty of breaking those rules. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, don't hate people. God gives simple rules. The 10 Commandments is a good starter, Exodus chapter 20. We're guilty. If there's a God, and if that book is true, we're going to be in trouble when we face him. And there's only 2 religions in the world. Only 2, Cain and Abel. Cain brought his fruit and said, God, look what I did for you, and God would not take it. Abel brought a lamb, an innocent substitute, a sacrifice, and said, God, would you accept this in my place? 48 and a half years ago, I accepted the sacrifice that Jesus made, and his death and blood on that cross was applied to my sin debt, and I'm paid for it. I am going to heaven. It is not because I'm good, it's because I am forgiven. And he wants you to have the same thing. It's wonderful. Nolan, if I'm right and you're wrong, you're in trouble. If you're right and I'm wrong, I haven't lost a thing. I've enjoyed life, wonderful family, wonderful marriage. I enjoy living. I'm happy. You seem really angry and bitter. I don't think you're happy with life. I feel sorry for you. Let's do this again Monday and we'll finish up. I took the same time you did. I got to go. Thank you for doing this. Another debate tomorrow with Croco something or other.
Crocoduck, yes.
Yes.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh, I can't wait either. This is going to be exciting. Thank you so much. Let's do this again tomorrow. Shut it all down here, Steve.
I'll see you Monday.
All right.
All right.
Stop.
This one?
No, this
the mouse?
one. There's 3.